What is up, RotoGrinders? We've made it to the NFL Pick 6 show, week number 18, week 18, otherwise known as the information slate. Rich Hribar, sharp football analysis. We got John Daigle as well. Wednesday night, we're recording this on a Wednesday night. We're going to do our best to lay the foundation. News, of course, will be trickling on through all throughout the week, all the way up to the bell, all the way up to Sunday. But, 13 gamer. The NFL got it right. I'm always upset when they give us 10 early games and 3 late games. 6 early, 7 late. Get excited. We could backload.
Yeah, they always do this in week 18, though. They always save it to the end.
Well, they totally redeemed themselves, right? It's the old Dumb and Dumber, right? I think they roped it up this all season long.
No,
I think they figured it out.
We didn't have Saturday, week 18, did we last year, Rich?
Yeah, we did. It was remember Josh Dobbs started.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
His first career start, and probably could have won that game if it wasn't for that sack fumble. They were live. They were drawn live.
Do want to get this out of the way, by the way. Do want to mention, if you guys want us to come back, we're thinking about it. It's not official. Maybe it's official. We're not really sure. But if you want us to come back for the playoffs, if you like this show, show us some love. Show us some love in the comment section on the YouTube. Show us some love with the old like button. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. We're probably coming back. It's almost definitely coming back. But, either way, if we can get
Wildcard round is fun because you get 2 Thanksgiving slates.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and we can fully dig in. Basically, that's the structure of the show, right? We can focus on
the way it's looking like. I don't know what the games will be, but the player pool for the wild card weekend looks like it's going to be just absolute heat, man. There's going to be some awesome wide receivers in the wild card round.
And some miserable defenses to target them with.
Well, we're probably going to have some overs. Are we going to have some totals over 50? Is that what we're seeing in our future, possibly? Maybe?
Let's hope, man. Listen, the NFL, as wonky and down the season was, I do feel like I'll have to check. I do feel like the last 5 or 6 weeks, the games were relatively exciting and fun. We had some fun, at least main slates, I remember. Maybe because I was winning money, I thought they were good, but
yeah. It's all relative. The ugliest slate in the world I win on. That was a great slate. The ones that are just amazing, fabulous football. I lose thousands of dollars. What a terrible slate. Why would we watch football? Let's watch something else. Hey, let's shout out the Listener League. The Listener League winner last week. The winner, I should say this week, Fog Ducker. The Fog Ducker. It's the Fog Ducker. Hit me up on Twitter at DFS_Almanac. Hit me up in the comments here. We're going to get you 1 month free of RotoGrinders Premium. That's not just football, for the record. That's all the sports, everything you think of, with the exception of NASCAR, all the bells, all the whistles, the optimizers. If you guys want to join this week's Listener League contest, the link will be dropped in chat. It'll be pinned on the YouTube. It's just $5 on DK. You take it down, you get yourself a month free of RG Premium. I happen to win amongst us, so later on in the show, I will nominate a movie for us to watch and discuss next week, assuming we're doing a show next week. We're doing a show next week. The Fog Ducker, congratulations. And Rich, I don't want to go game by game as far as this motivation, that motivation, right. But
there's only 2 games in total that have 2 teams that have officially been eliminated for the playoffs. So
Jets, New England,
and Raiders, Broncos,
which is good, I guess, with the extra wild card.
This is what they want. This is what they want.
Lots of team with motivation, some potential tankathon stuff as well. We'll get into some you just want to knock your rival out. It's essentially like your Super Bowl, I suppose. Maybe the Giants will get up to play against Philadelphia. Maybe Washington will get up to play against Dallas. But good luck, I suppose.
I will say ranking players this week already. And it's already been news since then. What an adventure ranking players was this week.
I'm doing my after the show. I'm not looking forward to it.
It's a lesson, as always, to never play your league into week 18.
The quarterbacks that are already confirmed as starting this week are absolutely hilarious.
Do you want to run down a couple of the names that are the completely absurd names that are,
well, some we've already had, but we've already gotten confirmed that Blaine Gabbert is starting. He's the Kansas City Chief now, for those that don't know. Purdy is not starting, so we have Sam Darnold. Carson Wentz, who is a Ram now. Some people might not know that Carson Wentz is a Ram because they actually started Brett Rypien earlier in the year. But Carson Wentz is there now, so he's already starting. Tyler Huntley is starting. Jeff Driscoll is starting for the Browns. I didn't even know he was on the Browns until they announced it. I swear to God,
they just
you live in Cleveland and this is your job.
Yeah, I was like, oh, all right. We've already had guys like Stidham and Zappy starting. Jake Browning, who's actually a hero, a demon. He gets a rushing touchdown every week, so he's like a faux Konami guy. Easton Stick is still starting. We don't know who's starting for the Titans yet. We don't know who's officially starting for the Eagles yet. We think that it'll still be Jalen Hurts, but Sirianni's talked about sitting dudes already. So we're just waiting on more news throughout the rest of the week.
Daigle, did I miss your tweet? You always tweet out, I guess because the fantasy football season is out, and it's if you're playing week 18, you're doing it wrong, obviously, but you always tweet out like these are the 19 guys that are hurt, these are the 19 guys you pivot to. But that's not a thing, right?
That tweet is usually done on Tuesday morning, and that tweet would have been useless by Wednesday morning. So no, not this week. I know better. I've done this for a while.
Well, do you have a general approach? And it's like, I'm just trying to think like teams like I just don't want any players on, and motivation is important. And we'll kind of talk about that. There are many teams that are fully motivated. Some teams it's kind of frisky, like the Detroit one seems ridiculous. Like any other coach would rest their players, I think.
Yeah.
But okay. So they can move up if Dallas win. Dallas
they
loses,
need Dallas and the Eagles
loses
to lose.
Like, come on, that exact the box is like 20-1. And
don't forget what happened to Brandon Staley last year. Brandon Staley played. They were in the playoffs already. They could only jostle for seedings. Like I think they could have been the 5 or 6 seed. And Mike Williams got hurt and was out the rest of the playoffs. They did not play the following week against the Jaguars, and they blew that big ass lead. And we had watched the whole season. Herbert literally struggle like anytime like they were missing wide receivers, and Mike Williams got hurt week 18. Dude, could you imagine if Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt, like or Jahmyr Gibbs got hurt? Like I guess the running backs they'd still be fine. But if Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt or Laporta got hurt.
That's why I was so happy McVay came out today and said he's going to bench everybody, because he was in this opportunity a few years ago. I believe it was 2020, and he played everyone through week 18. So I'm just glad that we're getting this news, what seems like earlier than usual, and not having to navigate as much of starters playing one quarter and then just hating ourselves when we play those guys and they don't move on beyond that.
I went through last year, because I wrote up all the games for the worksheet, and then I add stuff as news changes. And I went through last year, and we actually didn't have hardly any spots where like guys were like outright resting last year. And this year, man, this year we already have several announced.
I recall this exact slate last year, I had heard, maybe I passed it along on the show, that Justin Jefferson by Sunday morning against Chicago was going for the record. Because remember, they were planning on benching him. Or maybe it was week 17, and they did play him the first half, but that's when he had one catch, and they benched him afterwards. So it just seems like we're getting to avoid those kind of incentives and playoff motivation this year, as it becomes clear the backups are being thrown in everywhere.
And we don't have, even from everyone likes to talk about like the player incentive stuff. There's really not a lot on the table this year that's like even achievable. We had a guy on the site, Curtis Hirsch, write everything up, and like, most of the stuff is pretty like long for these guys to even get to.
Puka was the one that was going to get there, but even then, he probably wouldn't have garnered ownership because everyone knows.
The second he catches that 5th pass, he's out of. He's out of.
Exactly. Are they going to let him get the record?
He needs 4 catches. He needs 4 catches. He has not been rolled out.
Oh, he hasn't. Okay, that means the first quarter
he has no ceiling, right? He has no ceiling.
Oh no! Basically. The second he gets that 4th catch, he needs 4 catches and I think 29 yards, maybe 33 yards.
It's 29, yeah.
But it's something, dude. The second he gets that, he's out of the game.
Yeah, agree.
So Dalvin Cook needs like 800 yards or so. I saw that one on Twitter, whatever the number was. To get his incentives.
Usually, though, to answer your question, Dean, the way I play it is I just try not to get sucked up in the chalk that everyone gravitates to in a week where we're going to have all kinds of backups to pivot to. Like right now, I don't know what you're having. We'll talk about it throughout the show, but I think I saw already Richie James and Harrison Bryant are the 2 players getting steamed for their roles. And to me, it just seems like there's going to be stone men options everywhere.
Well, the big one, I think, is Christian Kirk on DK.
Christian Kirk would be funny. Christian Kirk actually could probably threaten week 13 Zach Moss. Maybe because there's just so much on the slate that like people are going to have money to spend anyways, that it won't be as bad as week 13 Zach Moss. And the fact that he's also coming off of an injury, but it is hilarious that he's mid on both prices, both sites. And dude, we're live. Remember, I came on a month ago and complained that I was holding an over ticket on Christian Kirk. He needs 39 yards. So you're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance.
And the thing is, the Jags are fully motivated. So, and I don't know how much he's going to play, and we'll see. Like, apparently, it looks like he's tracking to at least play or attempt to play. And we're not sure who his quarterback is, but I'm guessing it's going to be Lawrence. I'm guessing Lawrence is going to come back.
They've been playing everyone through injury this year, Lawrence included. So I kind of think they just throw the kitchen sink at this game, given what they need, and they play Zay Jones. They just get everyone out there, honestly.
All right. Anything else we should just kind of mention as like an overall, like Seattle's motivated. There's a lot of motivated teams. Seattle, Minnesota, Green Bay, Atlanta, and the Saints motivated against each other. Jacksonville, Tampa, Tampa's fully motivated. So there's a lot of teams that like you can just, if you just want to like stick in that pool, we'll delve into it later, but I'm curious, like San Francisco, like how far do they go? Do they rest Mitchell as well? And it's like all of a sudden the third stringer for San Fran as far as the running backs. That's a conversation we'll have to have.
There was already a beat. One of the beats, I'll have to track it down, but one of the beats already suggested Jordan Mason was probably at least going to get half the carries, if not more. That's because remember, Elijah Mitchell has been basically hurt all year. He's dealt with a knee injury since the preseason. They just got him back on the field, and I assume they want him for like an actual reserve if something were to unfortunately happen.
I believe it was Matt Barrows, and yes, he said he's unlikely to play for that very reason, that he's been injured all year. So
well, if Mitchell's just out, then it helps us. But like if Mitchell's like active and plays into whoever, those are the hardest things, right? Like these guys that are going to play a little bit, because like it would be great to say like, all right, if like Jaleel McLaughlin's going to play like the whole game without Javonte Williams, that'd be cool. He'd be able to be played, but like we don't know yet, like what the hell even a split would be like if you want to take a shot on something like that.
That's kind of like the Eagles situation too, which we'll dive into more. But like if the Eagles go back into halftime and the Cowboys are up by 4 scores, it's like, okay, well, they probably approach
now
the
that Sam Howell's starting. So yeah,
they probably approach the second half entirely different.
Yeah, and then there's the teams like the Bears, right? Like, that's kind of a tricky one too. Like, what is Chicago going to do? Have they officially said with Fields? They may trade him in the offseason. Certainly, they wouldn't want him to get injured going into the offseason, but they also want to stick it to the Packers. They definitely can stick it to the Packers, their biggest rival. John, that's your stopping grounds. Do you have a lean, a take? What do we think they're going to do there as far as is Fields going to play a full game? Either he's going to play. I assume he's going to play. I haven't seen anything otherwise.
I would think so because everyone's playing for their job. Rap Sheet reported over the weekend that Eberflus is likely to come back, but Getsy probably won't make it. He has to showcase for himself in the offseason, but Fields is still playing for everything, like whether it's for Chicago or not. So I would imagine, they are competing and they're playing similar to the Lions last year against the Packers and just trying to spoil Green Bay.
It feels very similar to that spot. I mean, you've got a team trying to build the culture up, even whether or not they have Justin Fields or not next year. But as a whole unit, I mean, the Bears are 5-1. I don't think they've beaten a team with a winning record, but they are 5-1, I think, over the past 6. So like they're in the same boat like the Lions were last year.
And all those defensive contracts they gave out are large enough to where most of those guys are going to be back. So they're still playing for those guys too.
This bleeds into the first game we're going to focus on. Seattle at Arizona. Arizona getting 2.5 at home. 47.5 is the total. Seattle fully motivated to win a game to make the playoffs. Arizona, John, this is the one. Like Arizona, like they're right there in the tankathon. They're tied with other teams. Like earlier in the season, I was like, why are we even going to force back Murray? Like, it's a lost season anyway. He's been fine. They probably could have had the third pick maybe if they won one last game. But I'm guessing Arizona is going to play their guys like McBride. If he plays a full game, we're going to have the salary for it. What is your lean as far as this? And it's a lot of guesswork here. Maybe you get the beat stuff on it, but I assume they're going to give it a go and like try their best.
You say they're in the tankathon, but they don't know that. They're still playing their ass off. They were down 21-6 the half last week, and they scored on every single second half possession. James Conner, 9 explosive runs against the Eagles as well. So they're absolutely still competing. I still don't think Kyler comes back. I know Gannon is saying that, but how much say does the coach have in this matter, given all the picks they'll have going into 2024? Regardless, though, that everyone said they were tanking at the beginning. Everyone said they were tanking the middle of the season. And here we are. They are still fighting and playing. A lot like, honestly, Belichick and this Jets, we're not going to talk about that game much overall, but I mean, the Patriots had every reason to give up in the first quarter after watching Bailey Zappi play. And dude, they were fighting their asses off. The defense is not going away. So there are just still players out there, man, that are still giving it everything. And honestly, whenever you see Mason Rudolph and the Steelers average 6.6 yards per play, then we should talk about this offense and the Cardinals as a whole. I still don't want to chase Kyler Murray in this spot. Even last week, we said he hadn't reached his ceiling yet, and he did end up having a great overall game, honestly, for fantasy. To me, it's still a spot where I'd prefer to continue riding James Conner. It's now 4 weeks in a row where he's been a top 12 running back. Three of those also a top 5 finisher fantasy too. And so just given how poor Seattle's defense has become, injuries, yes, but overall, they've just fallen apart. So are they motivated? Sure. But overall, man, this thing just seems like it's run its course already.
The tankathon is interesting, right? Because the coaches, they're coaching for their job, that kind of thing. Now, management might have something to say, but Arizona's 4-12, Washington's 4-12. They're almost definitely going to lose. New England's 4-12. They might accidentally win because somebody's got to win that game against the Jets. And then there's several teams that are 5-11. The Giants, the Chargers, the Titans. Arizona can certainly fall out of the 4 spot. They're currently looks like they're in the 4. Might be like a coin toss situation. I'm not sure what the tiebreaker may be. But yeah, certainly interesting as far as the Arizona offense. Seattle's going to be fully motivated. Probably shout out. I think it was Rich. I think it was you last week that was highlighting James Conner, and he was awesome. He was kind of a slate breaker last week. He was spectacular. Philadelphia.
Good. Drew Petzing the entire year, like low key, amazing job. Their Cardinals offensive coordinator, like especially in the design of the run game. Their run game has consistently been largely good the entire season.
It's punched up. It's like responded in matchups that it should not have for sure.
So who do we like on the Arizona side? We're going back to Conner.
Definitely. I mean, dude, that game they could not stop either Steelers running back. It did not matter. And this isn't just a 1-game sample. I mean, their past 6 games, they're 31st in yards per carry allowed to running backs. They're 29th in success rate against running back runs. They're 31st in rate of runs to go for a first down or touchdown. They've allowed RB scoring weeks to Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. I guess McCaffrey doesn't really belong with those other guys, but it's happened. So yeah, definitely Conner stands out to me. There's been 44 running backs to 100 or more carries this season. He's 5th in yards per carry. He's 6th in success rate, 6th in explosive run rate. He's 8th in rate of runs to go for a first down or touchdown. He's 1st in yards after contact per carry. He's had an excellent year. He just missed the middle of the year when we were trying to push Amari DiMercato and other bums through the gates.
Is there a chance they kind of like they're just going to let him finish the season strong?
Yeah, the Cardinals have given us no indication to this point that they are out here just fighting.
Okay, yeah, I don't totally get it. But by the way, I don't want to alarm the bells on a Wednesday night. There's a lot of things to be alarmed about, and again, stay tuned. But there is some weather lurking. I guess the worst weather game looks like New England.
Not here. There isn't. Not in Arizona.
Indoors.
No. Yeah, I just pulled up the weather page, and I just as an aside overall, I didn't realize that one of them was Pittsburgh, Baltimore. That's on Saturday night, so that's not a big deal as far as our conversation for the main slate. 2 games are orange currently according to chief meteorologist Kevin Roth. Some yellows to keep an eye on in Miami, the Giants, and Cincinnati. But the Seattle side,
that Ravens Steelers game and Island game was a choice. That was the decision.
What could they have picked instead?
I don't know, man. Anything, right? Like
Jets New England. You know what? They could have put Jets New England on just as like an experiment and see like if they still get like 15 million people to watch that nonsense. Because I saw Thursday Night Football was up 25% this year in ratings. Whatever they throw on there, people are going to watch. NFL, like it's got the seal. Like people just have to watch it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't.
It's absolutely perfect too that Brad Allen is calling the primetime Steelers Ravens game just chef's kiss NFL.
I said the punishment was too harsh. Like I know he really screwed up, but forcing him to watch the Steelers live in person
to work it.
Like,
yeah. I mean, my only thing with choosing that game is it was blatantly obvious after the Ravens won that game, like their guys weren't going to play.
Yeah.
So like to choose that game for an Island game when you know like one side's gonna half mass it, like that was a choice to choose that game of all the games.
Brett Hundley's agent's excited about it, but he's also nervous if things go the wrong direction. But maybe it's the Huntley showcase game, I suppose, for Baltimore. Talk to me about Seattle, Rich. How do we feel about the Seahawks this week?
Yeah, so I like this spot actually for the Seattle offense. If you remember, these teams met earlier in the season. Because remember, we have two teams that was our last chance to play guys against these defenses. We don't know. High variance. These defenses could end up being good next year. We'll see. But this Cardinals defense and the Commanders defense, like this is the last time we're going to spend with these units. Obviously, Cowboys very clear, but I mean, still, even this Cardinals defense is the one I want to pick on. And if you remember when these teams played earlier in the year, we saw Geno Smith have one of his better games. He completed 75% of his passes. He averaged 9.1 yards per pass attempt. But Arizona only scored 10 points and only had 249 total yards in that game. Geno only threw 9 passes after halftime. We've already seen now in that game, they didn't have Kyler Murray, they didn't have James Conner, and Zach Ertz was still their primary tight end. With Murray, James Conner, and Trey McBride on the field this season at the same time, the Cardinals are averaging 5.6 yards per play compared to 5.2 yards per play when those players are off the field. That's a difference from being 8th in the NFL in yards per play to 31st in the NFL. So we're actually probably going to get some pushback. I mean, Arizona probably is outright live to win this game anyways. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get pushback for Geno Smith against this defense we've targeted all year that doesn't pressure the quarterback. They're 28th in pressure rate. In week 7, Geno Smith was only pressured on 35% of dropbacks. It was his 4th lowest rate in a game this season. And that's huge because Geno has like jarring splits when he's pressured and not this year. When kept clean, he's completing 73% of his passes at 10th in the NFL. 8.4 yards per pass attempt, that's 4th in the NFL. When he has been pressured, he's only completing 51% of his passes, 5.3 yards per pass attempt. When he's pressured, he's last in the NFL in air yards per pass attempt. When he's kept clean, he's 10th in the NFL in air yards per pass attempt. So, like, we're getting probably some pushback here on this passing game, which really is kind of funneled into being DK Metcalf and the ancillary guys. We've really seen Jackson Smith and Jigba close the gap on Tyler Lockett over these past 6 weeks. They almost have identical splits. But DK Metcalf has, over his past 8 games, he's 4th in the NFL in receiving yards. He's tied for 3rd with 6 touchdowns. I do know 3 of those came in one game. But he has at least 94 yards receiving in 4 of his past 6 games played with Geno Smith. We typically do like DK more against these man coverage teams versus these zone-based teams. But he still is on play. If you want to stack Geno, I mean, you have to be looking at a guy that is, 3rd in the NFL in end zone targets.
They even blitzed Hurts last week on 87% of his dropbacks, but it didn't matter. They only got pressure on him on 25% of the time. So it's like, even in the rare case where they send the house, even without some starters potentially in Seattle's offensive line, it just doesn't seem like a spot where they can get there at all against opposing quarterbacks.
Talk to me, John, about Seattle, Metcalf, or we should bring Kenneth Walker into the conversation as well. 25-point team total here for Seattle, fully motivated. It's the biggest total on the board, 47.5 Seattle versus Arizona currently. So this game is going to be pretty popular in a dome as well. A fully motivated Seattle team, an Arizona team that we think is going to just punch back and try to spoil for Seattle, unless otherwise noted. Talk about the Seahawks here, John.
Again, they punched back against a Eagles team that was trying to win the division and now probably won't. And in this spot, it's the perfect one for Ken Walker. Even in the last month, the Cardinals are the only team allowing nearly a quarter of the runs, 24% against them, to gain 10 plus yards in the ground. So it's just the perfect matchup, honestly, for Ken Walker, who's boom or bust in himself. Not only that, but these last 2 games, even while battling an injury, Ken Walker, I was prepared to take him down to the wire as a late swap last week, but then we did get the Schefter bomb overnight Saturday about Walker likely playing. But even then now, he's handled 87% of the team's running back carries these last 2 games. Zach Charbonnet, although he popped up at the team's pass catching back and has still seen more targets in this span, just really game flow, game script, and how they use them now has really backed off over the last month. So sure, it's pretty much the perfect matchup for Walker if you want to take a chance in the volatility in tournaments.
McBride is currently our best raw points tight end. It's close. He's got a little bit on Laporta.
This tight end slate is.
I still can't believe that Laporta is going to play a lot. I guess.
Well, we're not going to have Njoku. We're probably not going to have Kelsey. I think Kelsey actually is 16 yards away from 1,000. So they might try to do the same thing where they just give him some catches. But I don't know if Kelsey even cares about 1,000-yard seasons at this juncture of his career. But we're not going to have Njoku.
2.5.
What's that?
Is Noah Gray's 2.5. I'm sure that's not going to. I mean, as a cheapy tight end, right? I'm sure.
Yeah,
Noah
playing
Gray,
with Blaine Gabbert, though. I mean, granted, he's still in. So, but I mean, it is like, because we're going to have like Harrison Bryant, too, playing with Jeff Driscoll. And it's not going to be hard to talk yourself into these guys. But this tight end slate is rough. Like, there's some guys off the board.
Jeff Driscoll should be a tight end since that's what he was last year.
We won't have Isaiah Likely either.
No.
There's been like a nice, boon here this last month.
You got a fully motivated Evan Ingram. You have a pretty motivated, unless the scores get out of hand for both these teams, I suppose, Ferguson and Goddard. I feel a little better about Ferguson because, like, if they pull ahead, Goddard might get taken off the field. There's going to be some scoreboard watching there.
And it's Dallas Goddard.
Chico Conquo from, if it's Ryan Tannehill, is kind of interesting in that game. I'm worried it's going to be Malik Willis, but we'll wait and see.
It feels point chasey, but honestly, he does have he's been solid, not just last week, but the past month. Juwan Johnson has been solid, and he's obviously on a motivated team and the matchup is there. So he could end up being really popular by the end of the week. But man, it's a gross tight end slate.
If you had to guess on a Wednesday night who's the 1-1, you're doing a tight end draft. Is it McBride?
It's McBride. It's McBride for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I was doing some underdog drafts and I had him number 1. Again, I was a little sketchy as far as, Arizona motivation, but it does seem like, I guess they're just sort of, they're just going to play out the string and, be competitive. And that's that. Like you said, you pointed out last week, they absolutely could have went to bed versus Philadelphia. And they decided against that because
they've won more games in Pennsylvania, I think, than Arizona. I'm not even sure.
It's a good stat. Didn't know that, but that's pretty.
Where were their wins? They definitely beat the Steelers, though. And,
well, they got 4 wins. Well, maybe there was one on the road that was not in Pennsylvania.
No, two in Arizona, 2 in Pennsylvania. So
there you go.
Break the tie. I forgot they beat the Cowboys earlier in the year. So that game feels like another season.
Forgot it happened. John, you got anything else as far as Seattle, Arizona? Shall we move on?
I think we pretty much covered it. James Conner, DK skinnies are my favorite way to go, but Geno will be in my quarterback pool as we just try to navigate off the cheap quarterbacks because there are some mid-price, expensive guys in good spots here.
DK skinny like a Connor and either Walker or Metcalf or maybe one of them. Maybe I guess you can play both of them the same lineup, something like that.
Yeah, I wish we could guarantee Greg Dortch. It's like we said last week. Anytime he gets snaps, he's just one of those guys who always does well. But again, they were down, 3 scores after the half, so they went to 3 wide sets. Not sure we'll get that here. It's just questionable. But yeah, Greg Dortch is awesome. He's good at football. He's
fun too, which I like. I know he doesn't get any fantasy points, but he's definitely fun.
Bears again, Greg Dortch. Someone give him a real shot. I feel like his career is like is on the Rashard Higgins path. Like, remember that dude? Like we kept saying like, oh, this dude's a baller, and just like you just never got a real shot.
Dortch got
25.
Dortch's UDFA contract got picked up like literally one of the first 24 hours of free agency last year. And I was so disappointed because I really thought he could make a little bit of money and get an opportunity.
He's still young.
Bears. He's 25. Yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah, he still has some he's still got a shot.
Yeah, I mean his college profile was good too. Like this dude put up some numbers in college.
He could not have been a high draft pick, right? Because of his size.
I don't think he was drafted.
No.
Oh, well, there you go. All right.
But I think he had like 90 catches his last year with Wake Forest, though.
The Bears take on the Packers. The old rivalry, 44.5 is a total. Packers are 3-point favorites. And that kind of tells you, right? I think the Bears are going to get up for this. Green Bay has all the motivation in the world to get this win. They want to win this to get to the playoffs. The Bears, it's a little bit murky, but they want to beat their rival for sure, if nothing else, I would imagine. Jordan Love, I heard like he's going to be extra motivated because he has some stuff in his contract. I guess if they win, he's going to make better passes, I guess. I've been told on Twitter because of that reason. He wasn't fully motivated, but now
I think like Dalton Schultz, like the Dalton Schultz incentives talk, I'm pretty sure those guys also care about going to the playoffs. The extra couple $100K is great, but I'm pretty sure they're worried about actually going to the postseason.
There's a lot of nuance to that conversation. Like, I don't know if we'll get into it or not.
I think his incentive is based on them making the playoffs, right? Let me see. He gets 500K. He gets 500K if they make the playoffs.
I think Gino has one too. If you have that,
Gino gets $2 million if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's probably not getting. I mean, I'm sure he's doing fine, but he doesn't have like this ridiculous contract. I don't think he's got. Or no, he got a decent contract right after last year. I think they extended him.
Baker has like a bunch of goofy things. Like Baker has a zillion incentives this week if they make the playoffs and like he finishes in like the top 5 in the NFC in all these categories, which he actually is in, right? Like currently like is like top 5 in like all these categories. Baker Mayfield's 4th in the NFL in passing touchdowns. Like
that's yeah.
Jordan Love is
just like not getting
Jordan
hurt.
Jordan Love is 30 passing touchdowns. He's 3rd in the NFL. He's got 1 fewer passing touchdown than Brock Purdy, 2 fewer than Dak Prescott.
Most of that though is staying healthy, right?
This is why Daigle was let go of 4 for 4. Like because he badmouthed Jordan Love in week 1 and Paulson axed him.
I was right the first 8 weeks.
Rich, you want to open up the Bears and the Packers?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup because obviously the Bears defense has been playing really well, and Jordan Love's been playing really well the back half of the year as we led into. So, like, what kind of wins out in this particular matchup? Over the past 7 games, they've really kind of reined Jordan Love in. That's been kind of the key. Is he was kind of like this erratic downfield thrower the first half of the year, and they got him like really settled in like the quick game. He now over his past 7 games is 20th in deep ball rate. Only 30.8% of his passes have traveled 10 or more yards downfield. That went from 5th to 16th. He was 2nd in the NFL in deep ball rate. He's 20th now over that span. He went from 9.2 air yards per target down to 7.8. He was leading the league in air yards per target. And then over this back half of the season, he's 15th. The quick game, the efficiency, has been there for the Packers. Now we'll see what wide receivers. That's the other thing is we'll see who's up for this game. It looks like Christian Watson is going to try to play. Now, if you follow the Packers for the years, like they're one of these teams like the Rams, like they're notorious like into sports science, right? They're very precautionary with these guys that are coming back from injuries. We've done this dance with Aaron Jones all year, right? And they've ramped these guys up. So even if Watson plays, I imagine it'll be like when he came back earlier in the year and it's like a 30 to 40% route participation guy, 3rd downs, red zone, stuff like that. Jaden Reed did log a practice. We'll see if he's able to be up for this game. We know Romeo Doubs is going to play, and we know what we get out of Romeo Doubs. He's literally Green Bay Gabe Davis. Like, did he score a touchdown? Checkbox, yes, he was good. Checkbox, no, he was worthless. We don't know if Dontavian Wicks is going to play. We saw Bo Melton, who actually had the first 100-yard receiving game for any Packers receiver this season. It's been more of a kind of a flat spread with these guys. So we'll see what wide receivers there. Luke Musgrave practiced at the end of last week, so we don't know if he's going to be up, but we'll follow that. If we don't get him, we get another full allotment of Tucker Kraft on this slate where we kind of just ran down, right? Like, we don't know, but at least we can say Tucker Kraft to be on the field. And if there's one area the Bears have been bad this season against that the Packers can exploit them, it's running backs out of the backfield, although Aaron Jones hasn't caught any passes the last 3 weeks, but and then tight ends. Those are the 2 things that have really hurt the Bears. They've defended wide receivers in the boundary and the vertical game really well, but tight ends and running backs out of the backfield have kind of been their kryptonite.
Kraft has been really consistent, basically getting 6 targets and 10 fantasy points. We'll see. And, cheap piece there if you want to connect them with Love. The receivers, it's kind of tricky to figure out, certainly on a Wednesday night, because we don't know the status. But Reed, Watson, and Wicks are all questionable. Stay tuned on that. This could be a really talented receiving core. It's like I don't even know.
They're all young. I think it's the youngest. I think it's the youngest receiving core in the NFL.
I feel like Watson's got a ton of potential. He keeps getting those hamstrings. Reed looks spectacular. Dobbs, like you said, is kind of yo-yo, has his moments for sure, but also the floor can be rough. Interesting to watch them going forward to see if they continue this group. But all right, John, your thoughts as far as Green Bay, the receivers, the run game. Aaron Jones was mentioned there. Would he get a little bit more in a game that fully matters? We don't know. He's also, I guess, questionable right now, dealing with a knee and a finger. But I presume he's going to be fine. Stay tuned on that, I suppose. But what's your read as far as the Packers? Feel free to jump over to the Bears.
It's, as Rich mentioned, Aaron Jones has been getting a lot of more still. Even these last 2 games, 43 touches. The issue is that the targets, for whatever reason, are not coming along now, perhaps because it is going to all the wide receivers to get the ball out of Jordan Love's hands quickly instead. But now these last 3 weeks, just 8 total targets for 7.9% target share. And so you would think that's where we would want to target Aaron Jones, since even with Montez Sweat, the Bears have been leaking production to running backs coming out of the backfield. Last week, even Tyler Algier had that 75-yard screen in the snow. James Conner and Amari DiMercado the week prior totaled 12 catches against Chicago. So it's still a spot where I may play Aaron Jones, depending on how the receivers shake out. And that situation is just all touch and go. And we're going to have to wait and see on Friday and Saturday. I do want to talk about the Bears, though, because I think it's one of my favorite spots on the entire slate, because we did have everyone calling for Joe Barry's head immediately when Tommy DeVito, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Young went 27-40 for 5 touchdowns and no picks on throws 10 yards downfield in 3 consecutive games. And then the Packers just showed their cards and they drew Jaron Hall, a 5th-round rookie, on Sunday Night Football, who got benched last week. So that defense is still the same thing. They just happened to run to Jaron Hall. And now you have Fields coming out, who, since his injury, these last 6 starts, averaging 32 passes and 11.5 carries, basically getting Jalen Hurts usage. And then last week, finally, maybe because everyone's asses are on the line and it's just now catching up to them, they finally moved DJ Moore around, similar to how the Cowboys have been using CeeDee Lamb and giving him a season-high 19 routes from the slot too. So Fields, DJ Moore, find your favorite Packer to run it back with. I think that's one of my favorite stacks on the entire week.
Narrative-wise, I just feel like it'd be good for the conversation going into the offseason if Fields has like an awesome game, in week 18, and it builds the tension, it builds the conversation even more as far as if they should trade him, if they should not trade him. And it's, again, another nuanced conversation, because I think a lot of it is salary stuff, right? If you can get a stud quarterback, through the draft that doesn't cost you anything, that's like the nuts. It's really, really hard to do. Like Justin Herbert for the Chargers. Now it's going to come up at some point, sure, but now he's going to get paid, and maybe the Bears don't want to pay him. But yeah, Rich, your thoughts here as far as Chicago? You like that narrative I just came with that? I'm creating one, but I just feel like it's
I don't want to get into like the whole like discourse of like what the Bears should do, because that's going to happen for 3 months. The second this game ends. But I will say, like, from an actual fantasy stance, like, Fields has to show a lot more as a passer. I mean, he's still only averaging 10.4 passing points per game since he came back from injury. And Joe Barry and the Packers have had his number. So we'll see if he can overcome this demon. I mean, he's 0-5 against the Packers. He's thrown just 4 passing touchdowns in this game. The Packers kind of know what to do against Fields. And so the key to Fields is you play a ton of zone coverage and you don't blitz him. That's like the MO on Fields. You got to make him process. He's awesome against the blitz. He is like really great when he sped up and just plays football. He's really good. Green Bay's only blitzed him 23% of the time in their 5 games. It's well below their normal blitz rate overall, which is 30%. And when they have blitz Fields, he's averaging 8.8 yards per pass attempt, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And this is a 5-game sample. In week 1, they tried to blitz him on 15 dropbacks. Fields was 9 of 11 for 96 yards and his touchdown. When they haven't blitzed Fields, 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 2 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's kind of been the MO for him, is if you just don't, you got to make him read and process. And we'll see if the Packers play that way again. They are getting Jair Alexander back. They did get a couple of guys back last week as well. I think the sneaky guy here for the Bears is Khalil Herbert. Absolutely, the weakness of this Packers defense is running the ball down their throat. And we've seen Khalil Herbert now 2 weeks in a row. The Bears, interestingly enough, lean into Khalil Herbert as their early down back, even though he also is a undrafted free agent, or going to be a free agent this offseason. But I mean, since week 10, the Packers have gotten absolutely smoked on the ground. So he becomes pretty interesting. I have no problem playing DJ Moore, because he's DJ Moore, having literally the best year of his career. So I'm fine. It doesn't look like we're going to get Cole Kmet. I would think he's probably doubtful to play in this game. But yeah, I mean, I think Khalil Herbert's pretty interesting, though.
The one thing with Moore is, like, again, like any sort of injury, and we've seen him have like multiple in-game injuries. A lot of times he toughs it out. A lot of times he goes out there and he's like a decoy. I know he's like a Wolverine. He was 98% healthy last week, he was talking about. But, there's no – if he has any sort of hiccup, maybe he doesn't gut it out. But I guess
He's not my favorite pay-up guy. I just don't have a problem with him if you're stacking it. I mean, he has really wide splits too versus man and zone coverage, like we talked about, probably because of Fields, right? Like because of the field stuff. I mean, he's second in the NFL in receiving yards against man coverage, but his his target rate drops 10% against zone coverage versus man, and his yards per outrun literally are doubled against man coverage.
It's amazing the Falcons just decided to man up last week.
Well, that's what they do. They put AJ Terrell on dudes. That's like how they play. And it's worked for a large part of the season, but when it hasn't, you give up big plays.
Mm-hmm.
I feel less excited about Fields after that whole rundown there, Rich. I know you weren't intending to do that, but that's just the way you kind of
I mean, it comes with the legs, right? Like the whole thing is like the rushing with him. But like that's the thing. Like as great as Justin Fields has played, like eventually in the NFL, you have to be able to throw the ball efficiently. And like, we still have not seen that consistently from Justin Fields.
Especially if he doesn't have Kmet's, I like that safety blanket of Kmet's and more. Again, there's a little bit of fragility there. I'm willing to play him. Certainly I know the upside. He could be the wide receiver 1 for the week. Absolutely. But there's a little bit of downside, but I suppose like you're supposed to swing big, right? You're not playing the min cash. You want to take a tournament down.
I'm seeing where his ownership goes to. I don't know what you have it at, Dean, right now, but if
this week
doesn't matter.
Sunday, projected ownership might not even be.
And it seems like I've tried to get Fields right, every week this year, and I always get it wrong. And when I do end up playing him, he's 15 to 20%. So I'd like to see where it goes because I do want to take on the low ownership for the volatility.
Our projection team didn't even bother. We have no current ownership now on Wednesday.
No complaints.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be up obviously at some point, but like there's no reason. Like it's just silly and it's a waste of time. All right. John, we got anything else here as far as Chicago and Green Bay?
That's about it for me. The only thing, Rich, I'm just curious about the game script. Obviously, if the Bears are hanging around, like, is it still Herbert? Since 66% of his carries these past 2 weeks have come when they've been leading by 2 scores, since they've had favorable game scripts here against the Cardinals and Falcons. That's my only concern about Herbert, because I did initially write down Herbert, but then I thought maybe I can pivot off of Fields to Fields and more instead. Yeah, Herbert will be low under the slate. I know that.
Yeah, he's only someone I'd look at for like large field stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the separation Herbert versus Johnson is big enough? Like you feel okay about it?
Well, it's just it's compartmentalized. Like Daigle kind of hit it. It's literally we know like how they're being used.
Yeah. The one time they threw us off was the one game before their bye against Minnesota where they used Roschon. But I feel like that was because of Brian Flores blitzing, and Roschon is their more trusted pass protection back.
Also, another zone-heavy team, if you want to go back to those Justin Fields splits and remember how he looked that night.
Gosh, that game, in my opinion, though, is why Getsy should get fired, because that's when they only called screens as well.
Gosh, that game, but that might have been the worst game of the year, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we go back and we were to rank games 1 through 272, that game is probably 272, right?
And the one time they went downfield, that was the last drive when DJ Moore had the 30-yard catch and put him in winning field goal territory. It's like, why do you do this all game long?
That game,
Jets New England might have something to say about being the worst game. Like, don't sketch that in just yet. Like
the first Jets New England game was really bad as well.
Everyone's going to spend up for Breece Hall, though. Like, Breece Hall is going to be the Christian McCaffrey on this slate.
I don't know. Like, I honestly have no clue what the field's going to do, but like that makes sense. I hear it. We'll see. But like again, the Jets aren't fully motivated, and why would they want to have him dings going into the offseason? It's a tough conversation.
Like Joe Flacco has been awesome. Don't get me wrong, but there were some business decisions out there last Thursday that some of those arm tackles were like, buddy, we got 1 week left and we're going to the beach.
Yeah, you got to you got to remember too, like going into that game. And I didn't expect Joe Flacco out there for 300 yards in that game. I was really wrong for that. But like there was a couple weeks there where the Jets, you could tell like their defense had kind of been like, dude, we've carried enough water this season. Like, F these guys, like F this, like.
We got 2 people hanging out in the chat, by the way. Let's see. Brian and Historical Anomalies, they're both well-actuallying us because Vikings Raiders 3-0. Yeah,
that's a good one.
No, just the Vikings, every Vikings game.
It's the old Virginia Tech.
So every Josh Dobbs game.
did Dobbs ever get his contract in that like 3-week window? I hope he did. I hope he got some money. Obviously, he's got stuff to fall back on.
There's a chance he starts this week since Kevin O'Connell hasn't named a starter yet.
Yeah, he named Mullins the starter.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means Justin Jefferson's back in play, boys.
Mm-hmm.
We have the money for it, and Minnesota is motivated. We'll talk. Well, that game did not crack the top 3. We'll talk about it in a second. I see Swaggy P in chat saying Tide God. There you go. That's the segue to our last game. All 3 of these games John picked are in the late window as well. Again, 7 games in the late window, 6 early. So take those screenshots if you're up. You're up early.
Since I don't have a show Monday, I may go out with the people. I may go out to the streets of Chicago and watch a Bears game. Cheer them on with everyone.
Well, wait, the game's in Green Bay, John.
No, but to a bar. Since
I got you.
Since I can't do that usually.
Yeah,
I got you. Fair enough. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Where's the watch party in Chicago?
I may go find it. What else do I have to do?
Philadelphia is taking on the Giants. The Giants are getting 5.5, 41.5 is the total. The motivation here is a little bit tricky, John, right, for Philadelphia, because they have a chance as long as Dallas loses, but Dallas is playing Washington. Washington is terrible. They're playing at the same time. They're probably going to be scoreboard watching. I don't really know how to sort of gauge this. I feel a little better about Dallas than I do about Philly because Dallas has to do the winning to like knock Philly out, right?
So also I think the 5 seed is low-key advantageous.
Talk me through it. I don't know.
You play the NFC South winner.
Tampa, possibly.
Probably.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. As opposed to playing.
They already beat Tampa.
Who would be the other team? I'm trying to think of the other team.
The Saints or Falcons.
Okay. I mean, so we got Saints, Falcons, Tampa. Like we're gonna power.
I'm just saying the Eagles are probably looking at it like, hey man, because Sirianni has already kind of hinted that like everything's on the table this week. So maybe they start and they do scoreboard watching. Maybe they rule guy. Devontae Smith ain't gonna play. We know that.
Yeah.
So like maybe they just pull some. Their offensive line has been banged up all year, especially that right side. Like they've had some guys go through it on the offensive line. Defensively, literally, we know they can't keep any DBs on the field this year. But yeah, I don't know if the Eagles. I think if we play any Eagles, like you're at a lot of risk. Like you just don't get a full run out for them.
That's what I wanted to go back to AJ Brown since it's the same spot a couple weeks ago against the Giants. He literally leads the league in target share, 39.6% of his targets against man coverage, which the Giants not only scheme at the 3rd highest rate, but it's how they played Hurts a couple weeks ago too, and blitzing him on 83% of his dropbacks I mentioned earlier. So I want to play Brown, but again, it's very, very scary because we just don't know how long they're going to play into this game.
What is the context of this quote? I see PFF tweeting out, feed A.J. Brown, Eagles OC Brian Johnson and A.J. Brown. We've got to force him the ball sometimes and make sure we get him going.
Well, so supposedly in the locker room, there is the schism behind closed doors and like it revolves around A.J. Brown. And it's whatever. We've seen this story 1,000 times, right? With lead wide receiver not getting the ball enough, right?
Yeah.
So that's supposedly what's going on, like behind the scenes.
See Stephon Diggs as well.
Julio Jones getting the ball too much. Like who's getting the ball? If not AJ Brown. I'm trying to think.
Is it a cool story? Sure, but when Julio Jones is your best receiver right now, like buddy, just take your leave. Don't even make it to the second round. Just get out now.
All right. So yeah, John, Philadelphia. I'm scared. I'm scared to play Philadelphia players. And I don't want to be scared. I want to be able to, I want to go for it. Right. And yeah, it's just and a lot of it again is predicated. You have to assume on Dallas. If Dallas is up 4 touchdowns versus Washington, Philly's probably going to run out Boston Scott. And then you can hit your cash your Boston Scott ticket versus the Giants.
Yeah, we're back. But, have you looked at books? Is it like minus 465 again?
The books are so scared to put anything out there right now, yeah. But let me see. I'll look and see if it's. I can't imagine like they're going to double dip on this, like the people. But this actually would be a spot where it could happen.
They should, since people bet it last time. The books know that they can sucker everyone in again.
Talk to me about the Eagles here, John. Give me the best case scenario for Philadelphia.
Best case scenario is they play the entire game and hopefully our AJ Brown ladders get there. They probably won't though, given those quotes you just mentioned from Sirianni, since again, they have an eye towards the Cowboys game, who are double-digit favorites against Sam Howell, and Washington. And it's the same thing we talked about last week, too, for DeAndre Swift, where it did seem like a good spot. The projections always say it's a good spot. But, man, when you're just not using the passing game at all, it's just impossible. And now it's the same stat I mentioned last week. It's 6 games now. And in that time, DeAndre Swift has totaled 17 receiving yards. Just a complete absence from that department as Kenneth Gainwell also continues to mix in. So for me, yeah, I'm really just kind of seeing if I can confidently pivot from CeeDee Lamb to A.J. Brown, because I think that's where the ownership is going to go. And I'm just looking for other pivots in the area. Rich mentioned Justin Jefferson, who we'll get to also, but that's really how I look at least the Eagles side of this.
I don't feel confident in a lot of things this week, but I feel pretty confident that Lamb is just going to be so insanely owned because you're going to have the money for it and the matchup and, the motivation, right? And maybe he only plays 3 quarters, but he probably gets as unless it's like 4 defensive touchdowns for Sam Howell.
The Cowboys are not getting a full game out of the Cowboys is different than the Eagles, because if the Cowboys guys come out of the game, it means that those guys put up a bunch of points.
Yes. That's why I much prefer Dallas over Philly for that exact reason. By the way, I did find Boston Scott apparently 1,400 in DK, which is like, it's not like something I would pounce on, but it's definitely better though. It was plus 200 in Caesars last time they played, which is just insane. And again, you can at least tell yourself a story in this one. Like if this game gets out of hand, right, then let's just hand it over to Scott because, Philly has nothing to play for, keep everybody healthy for the playoffs. Anyways, Rich, your thoughts as far as Philly? Feel free to jump over to the Giants.
Yeah, I think the Giants side, it's really more like, I don't think either site priced up Tyrod enough. FanDuel was more aggressive, obviously, 18 weeks consistency on that front. But 5-3 still as well within, you keep playing him. There's really no, there's no pushback, especially on this slate where everything's wide open and we have a number of good quarterbacks removed. Really, you're hoping only Dak Prescott kind of fails, right? Or Justin Fields, those are the 2 guys this week. And then it's just wide open again. So 5-3, pay down for Tyrod. He's going to run a little bit when these teams played. Well, first of all, the Eagles starting defense isn't good against quarterbacks. We just saw Kyler. They give they're 31st in passing points allowed per game for fantasy football. And that's when their guys are playing 100% all out and they're trying. Imagine if they pull some of these guys, what would happen? Tyrod 2 weeks ago had 9.4 fantasy points in the second half coming in for DeVito and just a half against those guys. So at 5-3, if you're going to flirt with 18 to 20 points, he's right back on the menu. And then Daigle can have one more week to play his guy, Darius Slayton.
Got
there again.
In a good matchup too. Yeah. I did not expect, although I probably should have, given how everyone wanted to also play Rams, but Tyrod also coming in with Slayton as combining for 35% ownership last week because they were 2 cash game options in a week where, you spend down at those 2 guys at a stack and then you can get up to Kyron and everyone else. It still shocked me a little bit, but they both got there for everyone.
All right.
Giants should have won that game too. They blew it
they blew it. They did.
They blew it 3 different times.
I'm drawing a blank. Was it with the Giants? I'm forgetting how it happened. I don't know.
It was Tyrod short arming Saquon Barkley because he looked upfield in that 2-point version and he could have run. He could have had it, but he saw Barkley open. He passed the ball, and it was just one of those brain farts where he could have done either, short armed it. And then they come back in overtime because they stopped the Rams and then Saquon Barkley drops the ball. And I don't know if it would have been a touchdown, but he had 50 yards ahead of him to beat everyone and run there. And then, of course, Tyrod still picked up the 30-yard run to get them in field goal territory. And then just wide, man. Just the story of the Giants season.
All right. Anything else here, Rich, as far as Philadelphia and the Giants, we should say? Should we run back and talk about our favorite players position by position that we've not yet discussed? Unless you have anything else on Philly and the Giants, we'll do just that.
You got it, man.
All right. Quarterbacks, Rich. It is kind of dicey. We're trying to figure it out here on a Wednesday night. What quarterback? I'm looking at the names in our lineup HQ. You kind of referenced them like Carson Wentz and Jake
We
Browning
talked about all the guys outside of Dak. Outside of Dak, we talked about the guys I primarily want to play, Tyrod and Geno Smith.
What about Lawrence if he goes?
Oh, no, this dude is he's put
broken?
together with Scotch tape at this point. I just can't. And Trevor Lawrence was not only is he playing through like a zillion injuries, like he's been awful. Like the past month, he's actually played like absolutely horrendous. I think I have a stat in here that eludes me off the top of my head. So his last 3 weeks, we actually saw him play. Only Trevor Siemian had a higher inaccurate target rate than Trevor Lawrence. I am interested in Calvin Ridley. I wish we knew that. I guess I'll save it when we do wide receivers, but I can't trust Lawrence. Like he's so banged up. I
can't either.
And he's like got an arm injury. Like the dude he's played through everything this year.
It might not matter as well, but Titans are coming out here trying to play spoilers. Vrabel's absolutely. Yeah. Now, they may not matter. It may be better to actually rest some of the players out there, but Vrabel's not rested anybody.
Nah, man. Vrabel's dudes are – Vrabel ain't letting his team not. Yeah.
The Lawrence thing is injuries. I think of like the Monty Python skit, like only a flesh wound. Yeah. Like he's going out there with like one leg, and he's got to play. He has to play. And the Jags don't have a lot of like experience of being good and making playoffs and stuff. So he wants to be out there. He's the franchise guy, but it's probably not going to be good. I just thought it was kind of sort of somewhat interesting. In theory, if he was healthy and good to go. What do you want to add, John? Any quarterback that we've neglected to mention? It falls off pretty quickly. There's not a lot of fun names, but if you want to throw somebody in the pool, by all means, go for it.
Honestly, no. Like Rich said, we pretty much talked about everyone I'm going to play, really just trying to avoid that cheap pool that some may get to because they think it's a slate where you need to stuff all these players in again. But I don't think we need to get there. I think we can have our couple of confident elite options, and it doesn't mean we go to Jeff Driscoll, Carson Wentz, all the above.
Oh God, no! Because they're playing a backup. So like those are like Niners Rams is literally a preseason game.
Yeah.
We mentioned Mayfield in passing. Is he somebody that's in the pool for anybody? I think he's should be at least if you're making a certain number of lineups, full motivation, very clear target tree, fine matchup.
I like guys in that game, but I don't really necessarily love Baker. He's got a rib injury. Carolina just doesn't face the raw pass attempts that like we like usually to target. Like they don't play in these back and forth games. So
what happened to Tampa last week? Why did they get shut out? Like why were they so terrible? I know.
Did you see the first 3 quarters of the game? Man, they were awful.
Man,
why were they so bad?
I mean, they got flooded. I mean, the Saints played a lot better football than them.
Yeah, I guess it's just as simple as that sometimes. John, give me some running backs that we've not yet discussed. Who was catching your eye? And I guess we sort of touched on the San Francisco situation. Who's going to be the Rams running back? Do we care who the Rams running back's going to be? Is that somebody super cheap possibly?
Again, like these are situations like maybe Daigle is going to pull me in a different direction, but like those are largely just stay away spots for me. And like, granted, there's probably going to be one of these whack-a-moles that hit like that pops up like a Pierre Strong or something. But like, we literally don't like, it could be anyone like it, like they could they might want to play Zach Evans. Like who knows? Right. Like,
well, I got one I know you'll like, Rich, and one I know you'll hate. Let's start with the good news. That is Rachaad White. You talk about Baker Mayfield, Dean, but again, it's the Panthers in general. We know to play running backs to get them, but the fact that the corpse of Travis Etienne just rose from the grave and basically ended all fantasy football championships on his back with over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns again.
One play, basically.
I mean, my word. That one play hasn't happened for 3 months now. So, it's just like Rachaad White. Even if he doesn't get there in the running game, we know we can get there with target share, but it's just a spot where he obviously in this game, I really think he can get there in the running game too. So Rachaad White's one that I hope gets lost in the shuffle. Probably won't, but hope he gets a little bit lost and everyone wants to spin down. The one Rich definitely won't play. I think I'm interested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he plays.
I'm not playing him.
Yeah, I know you are. The Isaiah Pacheco, we know that the Chiefs are going to hold out their starters. And we've seen, Jarrett McKinnon's on IR, first of all, but we've also seen that CEH is not a guy like Elijah Mitchell where like he's important to the process of the playoffs. He's someone they're going to give every touch to. And even under Gift Smith, it's the same Chargers defense. There's still 22nd in explosive run rate allowed. I understand CEH doesn't achieve many explosive runs, but again, I think it's a good spot.
Have you seen the Chiefs offense play with all their starters this year?
I saw him kick 6 field goals last week. Yes.
I had that, but with Blaine Gabbert throwing to Richie James.
We're not thinking about, we're not a receiver just yet, but I've heard people talk about the cheapies on Kansas City receivers. It's like they have a home thrown to them.
So like Daigle kind of hit upon it with like Rachaad White. Like you're going to be able to get these guys in your lineup.
Yeah.
Like you can just play. You can play Rachaad White. Like we don't have to guess which Rams guy is going to get carries. Like we can actually just play Rachaad White, right? Like we're allowed to. If we don't get Josh Jacobs again, we can just keep playing Zamir White, who has over 20 touches in his last 3 games. We can keep doing that. What about the ghost of Tony Pollard? No one wants to do that, but he actually was the RB6 against the Commanders. Remember, we only have one more game against this Commanders defense, and although McCaffrey didn't go like nuts, they still gave up 200 total yards, the 49ers running backs last week. I mean,
Mitchell got a couple touchdowns on him, obviously, with the CMC injury.
Yeah, he had 80 yards. McCaffrey still had 90 total yards too. So like those guys are all, I think, easy. Like we know what's going to happen with those guys. So like you can, and you don't have to struggle to fit those guys into lineups.
And
we only have one more time to try to make Bijan happen with who coaching the Falcons.
Like, no, you can, but
is it one more time though? Or are we just
I think
done
so.
now?
I think he's gone. Well, no, I think dude's fired. Is that what you're asking? You're saying don't even think about Bijan. Don't play it. It's not
I don't know. I really don't know if they're going to fire. If they miss the playoffs, it's probably leaning that way. But I don't know, honestly.
If you're the Commanders, you should have fired Ron Rivera this week, right? Like you can't let him Lovie Smith this. Although, like we know, like that.
we know, like that. How can he do that?
Granted, but like you see, like you just want to make sure there's a patsy in place, right? Because like Ron Rivera knows he's probably fired, and like you don't know, man. Like you just don't know. You don't trust a man when he has when his back's against the wall to that degree.
I do think he was the right hire, like to weather the Dan Snyder storm. They needed a veteran coach who was that kind of leader of men type. But yes, he has definitely worn out his welcome these last 8 weeks. It's been awful. True.
Is there a more misleading nickname in all sports than Riverboat Ron? Like, dude punts on
it held true
though.
It held true in Carolina. Yeah, it was true in Carolina, but for Washington, that nickname non-existent.
Bijan did roast the Saints the last time they played, though. He did have a really good game against them.
I think he's kind of interesting. But do we care about Kamara? Do we know if he's even playing? And if he doesn't?
No, because it's the same situation, Dean. We lived this life in week 1. First of all, Jamal Williams is not even cheap. He's not even cheap.
It was unfortunate when I saw that.
And in week 1, it's the same story, right? Kamara didn't play week 1 when these teams played, and he was awful. He didn't do anything. And we might get Kendrick. And also I saw Underhill saying that Kendre Miller might actually be active for this game too. So maybe they actually work him in a little bit. We'll see. But I imagine with the season on the line, they're just going to trust Jamal Williams and whatever. The interesting thing is they haven't been running Taysom at all. And Taysom has been a guy that's had a lot of injuries. But even last week when they were up 20-0, he only still had 2 carries. And that's like usually a spot where you would see Taysom get more work because Kamara had left the game at that point too. So I wonder how just healthy even Taysom is and like how banged up he is that they're not even running him.
Taysom was in for week 1 too without Kamara and Kendre Miller, and they only gave him 3 touches in that game. So it's the same situation where I saw and I thought, oh, maybe this is the week, but yeah, something's going on with Taysom for sure.
All right, we're jumping the receiver, I suppose. John, you can kick us off here. What do we like as far as receivers we've not yet discussed?
Actually don't have many written down. Unfortunately, I only have the Jamoke, also a cheap one. Again, that Rich won't play, but I'm going to go right back to Richie James. I think Richie James personally is someone like Greg Dortch in that he's proven anytime he gets playing time, he does deliver. And honestly, Stoneman slot guy who has had success in the past, as most recently as with the Giants last year, totally fine playing Richie James at Stoneman. Rich, I'll let you take the expensive ones.
No, I don't mind.
Like, just listen, Watson.
When it comes to wide receivers, I'll never yuck anyone's yum when it comes to a full punt.
We'll see Richie James and raise them. Rich, what do you got here as far as receivers? And feel free to get some of the pricey ones, obviously.
Yeah, I can't raise Richie James. But you can play him though. Obviously people will play Lamb. I think Ridley's in a really good spot again, and like probably will be kind of a guy because like he's always in a nebulous price zone, and people have thoughts where he's just so volatile they don't want to play him. But I mean, Tennessee has literally been a target for us the entire season. Wide receivers have scored 66% of the PPR points they've allowed. It's the highest rate in the league. They've allowed 18.7 PPR points per game to opposing wide receiver ones. They're allowing the most receptions and yards to outside receivers. Also, Ridley, if you want a box score hunt, absolutely destroyed them when they played earlier in the year. He has a league high 41% of the team's red zone targets. He has 51% of the team's end zone targets. So like he stands out. Mike Evans is in another good spot too. I don't think there's a player I've actually played more than Mike Evans this year. Tank Dell was on the trajectory when DraftKings just never changed his price for 5 weeks. Then we lost him to the ether. But Mike Evans, I think I've played him more than anyone just because he's always priced underneath that elite tier wide receiver. And we know Carolina plays the highest rate of cover 3 in the NFL and 52% of pass plays. Evans has played 6 games this season against teams in the top half of the league in rate of cover 3, and he's played 5 games against teams in the top 10, including games against the top 3 teams. In those games, 666-1, 6171-1, 457-1, 670-2, 786-2, 7162-1. He's 3rd in the NFL in yards per route run against cover 3, 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. They have to play for something. You're getting a full run out for him. So yeah, I mean, one more week for Mike Evans, and then we just hit on Justin Jefferson. I mean, this Lions team, you saw it again. CeeDee Lamb, granted, it's a good player, but it's just, dude, wide receivers they're so good against running backs, the Lions. They should think about being worse against running backs. They should try to, we joke about this all the time, they should think about giving up some rushing yards because, dude, Cam Sutton, this dude, I mean, I don't even know what he was doing on half the plays out there at CeeDee Lamb. One play, he stood still and just let CeeDee Lamb just run past him. But look at the box scores the wide receiver ones are putting up against the Lions. We just saw Jefferson have 140 yards and a touchdown against them 2 weeks ago with Nick Mullins. I mean, CeeDee Lamb just had 227 yards and a touchdown. Olave 5 for 119. Christian Watson 94 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore got them for 2 wide receiver 1 weeks. Keenan Allen 175. They're giving up crooked ass numbers to these wide receiver ones. So yeah, I mean, if you'll have the money, pay for Justin Jefferson.
You mentioned Detroit. Amon-Ra, Rich. I can't. Why would they play a full game? It doesn't make any sense. But Dan Campbell, football guy, right? He doesn't know. He doesn't care about should I sit guys? Should I start guys? He's like, is the guy healthy? All right, throw him out there. Let him do his thing. I assume nobody's going to play him for that reason. I'm a little bit afraid. How many lineups would you have to make to play Amon-Ra in a lineup?
No, I think anything super large field, you can do something with him. But I mean, it's got to be again, there is still risk that maybe some sense gets in, or just Mullins plays that bad and Kevin O'Connell's grasping at straws and they try Dobbs again. The Vikings could definitely make this a situation where it's just not ideal to have any Lions anyways, even though Dan Campbell wants to play him.
We gotta help Jeremy out in the chat. Jeremy says apparently he's got his championship week 18. First of all,
you gotta get a new league
or get the commissioner fired or whatever. He's got to sit Mahomes, Williams, and Puka. What is this? He has the nuts. He's got as far as the Rams. Mahomes hasn't been spectacular, but Williams and Puka have just been league winners. So he's asking, let's see, he wants this Tyrod or Minshew. I guess it's Tyrod, right? It's got to be Tyrod. Yes. Where's Minshew? Anybody?
My mic was muted. It's Tyrod for me, if only for the rushing upside. Minshew is in a good spot. We've targeted the Texans now over the last month and a half out of their bye constantly, but for me, for sure, it's Tyrod.
Hey, we mentioned it in passing. We mentioned it in passing the Christian Kirk thing. Assuming Christian Kirk is full go and he's going to play most snaps. Are we just going to lean in on this, Rich? If he's 3K on DK, which he is?
Oh, no. On a slate like this where literally it's wide open, I think he probably becomes a pretty clear large field fade.
4K. He's 4K on.
He's min. He's so literally useful. He's stone min on both sites.
How did they both goof up? I know the sports books marked it an L. You were talking about his season total. They've already have him for an L as far as his yards. I guess people didn't expect him.
I thought it was an L.
Yeah. Somebody tweeted at me. They said, "Yeah."
Nobody thought he was supposed to be back, but they just dropped the ball on
That's pretty wild. You have a take on that, John?
In a normal week, I would say I'd play him just to take it on and do what I can around him. But again, the world is our oyster this week. So I don't, again, as we talked about at the top of the show, I'm really just trying to not get involved at those stone min prices where they're going to catch 20, 25% ownership. And it seems like that's what Kirk's going to be.
Oh, Kirk's going to be.
Yeah.
If he's
it's probably a good, it's probably
as Rich mentioned, it's probably the Ridley pivot.
That's actually a great call because people, unless they're just fully stacking, but we already talked about Lawrence might be broken. So that's a problem as well. And do you want to have Lawrence doubles? I don't know.
I mean, though, I get he's stone min, right? And like, if you want to play him in cash, like by all means, absolutely.
Sure.
Cash him up. He's so cheap. But in large field tournaments, like what if he only plays 30% of the snaps and has, 2 catches for 21 yards? Like, that's like well within the range of outcomes for that to happen. And so like, I just think if he's going to be 40% owned, and I imagine he'll be at least 30% owned in large field stuff, like if not higher. I mean, to me, that just screams like I got to find something else to do.
And we're not going to be star for value is the other thing. Like there's going to be value pieces galore.
There's a
lot of places that you can tell the stories on. All right. Or, by the way, speaking of Jacksonville and speaking of tight ends, like Ingram, maybe Ingram's an interesting pivot, something we can consider. Tight ends we've not yet mentioned here, John, that we want to shout out. Laporta looks pretty good. Again, the Detroit situation is scary to me.
And he's already banged up.
Yeah, he's questionable. Like, what? I feel like if there's anybody sits or anybody gets pushed back, it's probably him or pushed down, however you want to phrase it. But, stay tuned. John, who are we adding here to the conversation when it comes to tight ends?
I think the cheapie everyone's going to play is Harrison Bryant right now, without Njoku, although it's from Jeff Driscoll. I'm curious. It's a double-edged sword because I was thinking about pivoting to Davis Allen since Tyler Higbee's not playing in the Rams starters. But also, Tyler Higbee with a separated shoulder, they may need Davis Allen for the playoffs. And the last time we saw Davis Allen start for him, he had 4 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. So that's where I was going to go with my Stoneman tight end. But again, in a game where the Titans, again, are trying to play spoilers here against this miserable Jaguars secondary, I may get off and go Chigakonkle instead of spending down.
You like Harrison Bryant ahead of Noah Gray?
Gosh, week 18.
Also, is Noah Gray a guy that plays all the snaps?
Is he someone you got to protect?
He's literally part of like their base package. Like they play a good amount of 12 personnel.
All right, Blake Bell, Belldozer. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, they're the same price, and now we're talking about a 2 tight end package from Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah. See, that maybe one of the things I think you guys kind of both alluded to this, like maybe overthinking it. Like it's good to have the information. It's the information slate, but don't get too crazy. Don't tell yourself these insane stories that this third string running back all of a sudden, like it might just be a timeshare amongst the second and third and fourth guy, and nobody gets there. And it works, like the Jets. Yeah, go ahead.
If you think preseason DFS is fun, go look at those winning scores from preseason DFS, because when you get a 3-point receiver, you are exuberant.
I've only dabbled in the preseason streets, but yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Those scores are really, really low. Like a tight end catch is exciting.
So just understand that's the kind of players you're likely talking about whenever you're looking at these Stoneman options. So there's no reason to chase the 30% plus.
Yeah, do you want Charlie Warner? You want Charlie Warner from Sam Darnold? You're running that battery.
Are we chasing Jawan Johnson? Is that something we're considering?
Yeah, I think he should be on the menu still. So last week, obviously, he had a season high target share at 35% targets. That's not going to happen again. His previous, though, season high in target share was when these two teams played, because everyone targets tight ends when they play against the Falcons. I mean, the opposing teams have targeted their tight ends 26.6% of the time against Atlanta, second highest rate in the NFL. He had 7 targets in the first matchup between these teams. I don't feel like it's as point chasey as it looks on the surface. Plus, he's only 3.6. It's not like he went to like the mid 4s and we're paying for it, right? So I don't have a problem with him. And there's your skinny, Dean, Bijan and Juwan. You've got your skinny.
Yeah. I don't really want to like Bijan is such a conflicting play. I kind of want to play him, but I'm not sure if I want to play him. But theoretically, it's a good play, I think. But we'll see. I guess I'll look at ownership stuff. But ownership's going to be. I'm just glad that's not my job because that's a hard thing to do. And also, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces and news coming in at like 12:15 and 12:30 and 12:45, and even late with all the late games. That's I know, John, you were talking about kind of backloading. Maybe any sort of tiebreaker, you go for the late player just to give yourself some flexibility. And there's a lot of games to maneuver with. So,
and I really backloading just because they're the more interesting games in this slate. But overall, yeah, there are still quite a few one-offs and pieces I'm still interested in the early slate. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. Just take the flex at the second slate of games.
I do think punting at tight end is completely fine in this slate because it just who's going to bury you at tight end, right? Like even if you play Harrison Bryant or Noah Gray or whoever you want to play, who's killing you here? Like McBride at 6K. Like even though we say there's money, like how many people, like how high rostership is like we're going to see McBride get? And he's like really all you need to fail. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. Just play Connor and don't play McBride. And, that could really work out in your favor.
Oh, yeah. We're playing James Conner for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I believe that is the slate. I did want to mention, by the way, not a lot of props out there. There are some props, there are posted. They're kind of scared at this point. But the RotoGrinders props and pick'em package. Check out the brand new props and pick'em package. The experts of the RG projections team, they take our premium stats. They comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. Check out the link in the description for more information. You can use this also if you're playing like Underdog or Prize Picks, things like that. But I thought there was an edge. I was hitting up some Underdog stuff last night in drafts, and Kyron Williams was going first overall, and I'm like, am I missing something? I don't think he's playing. And like people just kept picking him first, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. We'll keep doing that. And I kind of missed the window. I didn't get as much volume as I wanted to. But I feel pretty good.
I did just start getting into the playoff best ball streets since I got a little more free time on my hands now. And that's interesting because there are quite a few edges, I think, in that right now.
Yeah, I've been wanting to. Yeah. So like, I guess I was thinking about waiting until everything is set, but maybe it's best not because there's sort of like stuff up in the air and there's some
rookie move,
get rewarded for.
Absolute rookie move to wait until the playoffs are set. The constructions you can get aren't as good. You can still make some good teams, but buddy, you want to start firing those contests right when they come out. And if we're going to talk about playoff best ball, I know you guys are talking about it on Underdog. You want you want another really good playoff contest? Go over to Drafters. Yeah,
Drafters. You love Drafters.
But that's where I make my money, man. Like that's where we're making money is over on Drafters. They have a great contest that's probably going to overlay. A little bit different of a scoring system. Overlay. So
okay,
that's where I would be looking.
It's total points. Is that how it is? Drafters the way it was for the regular season, and there's not like a moving on.
Yeah, total points, but you also want to draft for the Super Bowl still there, and they have a tight end spot, whereas Underdog doesn't have the tight end spot. So roster construction matters even more on Drafters.
I took a flyer on Cleveland and I took a flyer on the Rams to win the Super Bowl just for funsies. Just kind of looking at, there's not a lot of great teams. Like I feel like we can get something really goofy when it comes to the Super Bowl. I don't know. The odds were astronomical, but I figure why not just throw a few bucks on it. You never really know. Rob, you're joining the show because we're going to talk movies now. Did you have a thought as far as this main information slate week 18? We talked about it for an hour and 20 minutes with the people. I think that's enough on a Wednesday night, but if by all means, if you have any or just general philosophy, how you handle the old information slate.
I have a lot of thoughts right now. Not any of them really about football or week 18. The only thing I've actually done for week 18 is send overs at a $200 head to head, and we'll figure out that roster in a little bit. But I'm staying in a castle in New York right now.
What?
And yeah, I mean that's what I do. I am.
Oh, is this for the haunted house thing going on? Is it?
No, this is for one of my other 13.
Oh, you just bought a castle.
Yeah, I just bought a castle.
Okay, fair enough.
You ever heard of Best Ball? We just make all our money and we buy castles.
Okay, I mean that's fair enough. I mean,
which I know can't be true because I heard how your finals went in the chat.
Yeah, not great. We were very sad.
Yeah.
It wasn't the
Anyways,
best run out.
Did not run good. Yeah, it happens.
I'm at this castle in New York, and as you do, I was looking for food, right? And I looked within a 30-mile radius. I mean, a 30-minute
White Castle?
radius. No, the name of the restaurant that I found that alarmed me is Jones's Barbecue and Foot Massage.
Okay.
That's a real place that exists in New York. And I have so many questions. And I'm
You
so
have to
you
go
go?
your feet with the barbecue
You have
sauce.
to go.
dude, it's a real place. It's like 30 minutes from here. No, I am.
Hold on. I
disgusted.
don't want to correct you. I just Googled it. Apparently, the official name, it's called Jones's Good Ass Barbecue and Foot Massage.
Sorry,
That's the technical name.
Man.
I was going off the Google Maps one, so I apologize.
That's what it's called. What is the Yelp score? We gotta go.
What's
So
the Yelp
that's
score?
So sorry to
So
derail
did you
the
go?
show.
Have you ordered there, or did you get a massage?
No, absolutely not.
I mean,
Like, are you going to eat at a place that people's feet are getting touched?
no, you're
Steve is screwed up on the screen. For
I'm
us.
there. Oh, how do you
All right.
not go there?
just like we weren't sure if we were
What-
actually watching
wait,
a movie.
pull that
I'm
back-
not sure
Steve,
that's a
Steve,
real
pull
restaurant.
that back up. What was that other animal? What is the one on the left?
It's a
What is
dinosaur.
that?
I did watch the commercial afterwards.
What
Big
is
There
that
is a
bird
purple
commercial.
animal?
It's
What is
Big
that
Bird,
thing?
and what was that?
I think it's like a dinosaur. I think
Is
it's
it
a
a horse?
dinosaur.
Is it a horse? Like, what was that thing?
I'm not sure, but I'm interested.
You're also asking the wrong questions. What you're supposed to say is, will I ever see a Jones's Good Ass Barbecue and Foot Massage ever again? And since the answer is clearly no, you go. Once in a
Daigle,
John,
lifetime.
apparently there might be one in Chicago as well. I don't know if it's a franchise. I'm not aware of.
That I'm aware.
But maybe you can check that out as well. But
Silva's
yeah,
probably
I'm
been
interested.
there if it has.
I mean, listen, that sounds like food poisoning.
Yeah, dude,
That's how
I
you
don't mess
celebrate
with feet.
championships, and not the castles. You go to Jones's Good Ass Barbecue and Foot Massage. That
I
sounds
don't,
like a
I don't
pretty good
mess with feet
celebration.
anywhere, so I will not be attending Jones's. I mean, the two places I don't want to be is somewhere where there's getting foot massages or in the ocean. I'll stay away from feet, and I stay away from giant squids. So
Yeah.
that's my rule. of
Squid is
life.
what if you're most afraid of the squid in the ocean. That's what's going to get you.
Dean, have you seen a giant squid? They're like 80 feet tall with like 20 feet big
Yeah,
eyeballs.
they don't. Come on, they're not going to get you. They're doing fine. They don't need you. They're
You're,
gonna
see,
leave you
you're
alone.
asking the wrong questions. The right question for that is what happens if they do?
Well, you're thinking negatively. Is the Meg going to get you? Are you also afraid of that? It's like, what else are you afraid of? in
Dude,
the
I'm
ocean?
scared of everything in the ocean. They don't have bones.
Yeah.
Like it
Dude,
doesn't.
we
make
know more
sense.
about outer space than the ocean. Like we've
Yeah.
explored like more of outer
It is
space.
wild. How do we know nothing about the ocean? It is pretty crazy.
So
But
I
if
don't
it
like.
wasn't,
I don't like the ocean because I don't like that feeling of like not being able to see what's around you. Now, if you're like
Sure.
scuba diving or something, that's different. But like, I don't like being in large bodies of water. I don't like that uncomfortable feeling of just like not knowing what's around you. It's
There's
scares
a
the
lot
shit
of
out of me, man.
unknown around you.
Yeah.
I don't
you
like
should
that, man.
know.
I don't like
it's
it.
week 18. If the people are not aware, we're done with the football. we're
I
done.
don't like it, man.
Just
We're
wanna
talking
make
about the
it
ocean
clear.
at this point. Listen, we just saw that Jones's Good Ass Barbecue and Foot Massage. I'm with my number one fear is the ocean, dude. Like,
Really?
Same.
Do you ever watch documentaries?
Oh, all the time. It's like watching a horror movie for
Man,
yes.
me.
I don't think I fear it, but I am like obsessed with ocean documentaries. Like that's all
Have you
I
ever seen
watch.
like some of like the deep sea like fish and stuff? Like they're like aliens.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. They're
Have
great.
you
Can I
seen-
propose a theory?
Go ahead.
For every one Super Bowl, there are 4 Shark Weeks. I think Shark Week is always happening. I always see advertisements for Shark Week. I feel like that happens way more than Super Bowls. Is it not supposed to be one time a year, or are they just kind of fudging it because the ratings are great?
I thought it was
It's the
just in
same. They keep
August.
recycling the same docs over and over, right?
Oh,
And
my
mine's
yeah.
another shark.
My thing's not necessarily a shark thing. It's like I just don't like that feeling of not knowing what's around you. Like I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Why is that exclusive to water, though? That
I mean,
could be a lot of things.
As opposed to what? Like when else are you in those situations, Dean?
I don't know.
Well,
All of
because
America.
you know what it is we have that thing in our brain. Like, yes, if I went into like the jungle, Obviously, I would get destroyed by some sort of cat or something, some sort of lion. But at least I feel like I have a fighting chance because I have legs and I feel like I can run. I'm not out swimming anything in the ocean. Like I'm out of my element in the ocean by far.
Yeah.
Like I'm not supposed to be
you have
there.
no home field advantage. You're the visitor for sure.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
By the way, I said we were done with the football, but not exactly, right? Because we are talking about a movie that we all watched last week, and I think this was Rich. This is your nomination, correct?
Well, this was like a group effort decision.
By the way, I haven't fully settled on ours, but I think this was kind of nominated, the movie we're going to talk about in a second, based upon some sort of like unintentional comedy, at least, according to the trailer that we all watched. Of course, we watched the great Kurt Warner movie, American Underdog, starring Zach Levy. You know him from Shazam, maybe Chuck on NBC. Anna Paquin.
Chuck.
Never watched Chuck. Is that worth watching? Should I watch that?
It's fine.
Anna Paquin from Sookie from True Blood, from X-Men. Dennis Quaid plays Dick Vermeil as well. Mike Martz is kind of a dick in this movie. He's the dick, actually. He kind of redeems himself at some point. But yeah, we're talking about American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story. Yeah, we're going to discuss that. We're going to.
No one had seen it. No, it was a rare.
Shockingly, nobody knew it was real.
No, but like literally nobody has seen it. It's not just the four of us.
The Warners.
Literally nobody has seen this movie.
But Rich, you nominated it. I'll let you open it for the floor. What are your thoughts? Is your first takeaways?
So mixed things here. There's two different mindsets. All right. So first of all, the Kurt Warner real life story is a great feel good story.
Yes.
They told this story, and it's a largely faithful adaptation. There's a couple of things I know that like the football stuff was a little bit skewed, but it's a great story. It's like it's a sports trope movie, but his life was a sports trope. Like it's an actual feel good story. So watching the movie and them actually kind of nailing the story, like it's hard not to like it's very Hallmark, but it's a feel good story, and it's hard not to have those feelings. All the general issues I have with this movie are on the production side, but so. It generally is, though, like when you watch it, like this is a movie I would say was a lot better than I thought it'd be because it's hard not to feel emotions about it's a good story, but also like, will I ever need to watch this again? Like, absolutely not. Like 100%.
Not even as
You're
a
hitting everything
movie.
I wanted to say.
No, because we know because how the movie's gonna end. We know the Kurt Warner story. They nail like kind of all the beats. Like you get a little more background with him and the family stuff and his wife, but like we know where the ride goes. The only thing I was really looking for this movie was just one solid montage, and we got it. We did get it. We got one solid montage where he said, like he realized he gets paid for the touchdowns in the Arena League, and we just saw him ripping balls, ripping zangers, man, just throwing needles and just stuffing hundreds into that jar. And that's all I wanted out of sports movie. Just give me one solid montage. But the production of this movie, like the budget in this movie, it was all spent on the actors.
I like that they had the actual footage. They spent some money on the footage. I don't know how much they paid the arena people, but we saw Todd Christensen and Kirk Herbstreit. Like, shout out to Kirk Herbstreit. He used to be calling arena football, 20 years ago, or wherever it was. He's certainly, risen above that pretty high. Gus Johnson. We heard Gus Johnson on the mic as well. I liked how they kind of blended in some of the old school stuff. You saw the actual real plays, and it was super obvious. Like that's the real play, and this is like our reenactment. This is our reactions to the sidelines. John, jump in here. What is your thoughts of the Kurt Warner story? I didn't give the synopsis, but I assume, the people know the synopsis.
It's synopsis, Kurt Warner.
And that's the synopsis is sort of the thing here is that football takes such a back seat in this movie, and I feel like they should be applauded for that. But it also felt replaceable with anyone. Like it's Kurt Warner's story, but it could also be like a gas station tenant story. It could be a UPS driver story. It, like you said, you'll never watch it again. You are correct, but also it's just replaying on Hallmark every single night. Like this is the same movie we see on those kind of channels. And so
Invincible.
Sure. Yeah, the fact that it involves Kurt Warner, sure, but again, I mean, this is just the carbon copy, I feel like, of those kind of movies.
Yeah.
Did it bother you that Brenda and Kurt Warner were executive producers? I just think it's the problem, just kind of like this whole sort of genre, and I guess it bleeds to documentaries as well too. Like Michael Jordan, basically building his own documentary, and everybody now, every celebrity that puts on a documentary, it's like their own. Like it's not as authentic. They put their own personal spin on it.
It felt though like it's almost like they had nothing exciting to spin on it, and that's how we got these weird scenes like them walking the gas can to the gas station. It's like that doesn't need to be in the movie. That could have been edited out, but that's just a story they told, and they're like, we want that because it's part of what we did. So that's like you could tell they absolutely had control in the film.
Yeah, that was sort of my thought. Brenda definitely wanted that in there. Like she definitely wanted that.
Yeah.
Anna Paquin, does she kind of nail Brenda? I think it worked pretty well.
I think the casting overall was solid. Zachary Levi's passing form.
The main character wasn't great.
Main character casting was okay. Some of these side characters, every athlete that they
Ray
cast,
Lewis?
Dude. Well, the football scenes in general
was terrible. Like, dude, Zachary Levi was 8 feet taller than Isaac Bruce in this movie. Like, what are we doing here?
It was casted by someone who'd never seen football before.
Right. Oh, dude. Ray Lewis, hilarious. Still was as great as like them. The actual character of Ray Lewis in the movie was amazing. And dude, the Rams uniforms that they wear at the end, like do you remember those Hutch jerseys you would like get like an old school, you would get like the players' outfits, like with the plastic helmet, and you would get like, dude, the Rams uniforms were awful looking.
And the Ravens look fine. I noticed that too. I'm like, the Ravens uniforms look legit. What are these Rams uniforms?
The Kurt Warner, the Zachary Levi, his numbers were all like, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, what is going on here? Some of the extras, there's one scene in the beginning, and I don't particularly look for this, especially my first time viewing a movie, but when he's first at the bar and that woman walks up next to him and you think he's actually going to have like a conversation with her or something, and he just doesn't. And if you look, the last scene that he's sitting at the bar, that woman turns over and just stares down the barrel of the camera for like 5 seconds. And I'm just like, bro, how did you leave this shot in here? How did you see this and be like, it's fine.
Because like you call them extras. Those were literally just people sitting at the bar while something was being around them. They received no funds for that.
It was amazing. And I don't know, the we got to talk about the scenes of the sports, like all the scenes of the sports, because that's like that's what they wrote on the script was the scenes of sports. Because it is the worst football reenactment and overall set design that I've ever seen in my life.
Why are they in like a warehouse? Every football scene's like shot in a warehouse.
Yeah, it's literally Tommy Wiseau from the room level green screen stuff that we have going on. It's like, just film it outside. Just go outside. Just go step on a football field. I have a high school football field in my town. You probably could have filmed this at and made it look 100 times better. What was this?
Did anybody?
How do you feel about the Zachary Levi's form? His throwing form.
Oh, dude, there was one scene in particular with him. Like, it was all bad, but he did like this shoulder juke, like fake pass, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, if you did that in the NFL, you would have gotten destroyed. It took him about 15 minutes to even do this little juke. It was like this, and I'm just like, man. It was so bad. So
I feel like if you're an actor and you're going to take a role on like this where you're playing a quarterback, like you got to get coached up, man. Like you can't be on film the whole movie throwing the way he throws.
Yeah, you can't be that Robbie Amell clip that everyone posts on Twitter all the time.
Charlie Sheen learned how to throw a baseball.
Oh, that's a good question.
What do you got?
It's not it when I rewatch the movie, it doesn't stand out that we're like not like the other pitcher Ed Harris in that movie. Like Ed Harris in that movie looks like he's never thrown a baseball in his life.
Well, he's throwing Vaseline balls, right? Isn't that that's sort of his gimmick? He's like a 50-year-old basically.
He's throwing like 45 miles an hour in that movie. It's hilarious. Like it's absolutely amazing. He's like throwing in that game at the climax where they're going to like win the division. And like, dude, he's just like throwing lollipops. And they're just like, dude, like
if Tom Cruise learned how to skydive off of motorcycles, you're required to ask Kurt Warner how to throw a football.
Yeah, exactly. Just follow him, learn his form. I also take back my casting thing because Dick Vermeil, Dennis Quaid, I think Dennis Quaid is one of the worst actors of all time to begin with. But God was his Dick. I don't think it's that hot of a take. Watch a Dennis Quaid movie. He's awful.
Frequency.
He's so bad. His Dick Vermeil was real bad. What are we doing here?
It wasn't great. This kind of confused me. The movie opened with like showing Joe Montana like in the Super Bowl. I think it was in the Super Bowl, and he got sacked, and like they were praising him for staying in the pocket. And I thought that this was kind of like payoff. Like, and you remember his first coach said stay in the pocket like 9 different times. He kept stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket. But it also dates the story. Like what coach right now is preaching? You got to stay in the pocket. You know, tell Lamar to stay in the pocket, right? Like, you can't move. But I guess, you know, this is 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was. And also remember he's yelling at the other he was yelling at his quarterback. It was like a 3rd and 10. He's like got pressure coming at his face. He throws it, you know, like a 7-yard pass. He's like, oh, you didn't get the first down. Like, what do you want the guy to do? Like, you're talking about the actual action of the plays. You remember this play? You know what I'm talking about? Like, there's something you can do. And then Kurt Warner's like, put me in. I can do it. Which also seems like that's probably not something how that works, but I guess it works for the story. I just thought that guy was the worst coach, not since Ed O'Neill in Little Giants, who gave up a 99-yard touchdown to his brother Rick Moranis.
I love how Dean does it always circles back to Dean in the annexation of Puerto Rico.
I mean, how do you give up a 99-yard touchdown with no time on the clock? Just put everybody into 50. It just drives me insane. How do you fall for any trick play? Ed O'Neill is the worst coach ever. But anyways,
I think this stay in the pocket thing was supposed to be their metaphor for the movie.
Yeah, like take your hits, like taking hits.
Yeah, and
did it land for you? It didn't land for me.
No, I was just gonna say it failed miserably. It was supposed to be the analogy for like the family. He's sticking in with them and all this other stuff, and it just does not land at all. It is not well developed in the slightest, I would say.
Richie in chat says it would have been better with the cast of Sharknado. Big week for the cast of Sharknado. Ian Ziering is in the news. I don't know if you guys caught that.
No.
But are you guys afraid of Sharknadoes, by the way? You're afraid of the ocean. Are you afraid of Sharknadoes?
Would you not be afraid of a Sharknado?
Yeah, a tornado made of sharks?
Is there a documentary?
I'm scared of real tornadoes. Real tornadoes are enough. You need a tornado made of sharks?
But you know somebody would drive right into it. Like that footage would be amazing.
Yes, they would.
And yes, it would. You're right. It would be amazing to see.
I was hoping they would lead into the femullet a little bit better, like the female mullet there for Brenda. It kind of, sort of, somewhat, but not. They didn't go full mullet. That's fine.
I think the biggest problem with this movie is that I wanted it to be more unintentional comedy. And
yes,
if it would have been more about sports, if it would have been more about sports, it would have been unintentionally funnier.
I mean, this movie is a 40-degree day, right? Like it's a 40-degree day.
Well, I thought the funniest part is the Mike Martz arc, right? Where it's like he's this big asshole to him the entire movie, and then he's like, I did it to toughen you up. And then I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, yeah. And as soon as Mike Martz was the head coach of the Rams, he did everything he could to put Brock Osweiler. Was it Osweiler? Who was it? Who was the quarterback?
No, it was was it Mark Bulger? Or was that
Mark Bulger? He tried
to.
He was like, I got to get Mark Bulger in there and get Kurt Warner the hell out of this offense immediately.
Well, one of the liberties they took, and I guess it definitely makes more sense for the movie though, but he was with the Rams for a whole year before he played. He didn't just join the Rams and then got thrust. Like he was with them the whole previous year before Trent Green got hurt.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that fantasy year? Because obviously he was incredible. Like, you know, Trent Green getting hurt in preseason. And then I remember having my draft with my friends on pen and paper. And, you know, I remember Warner was like a last flyer, like somebody, and then he was obviously just incredible. It's like finding, he was the best fantasy quarterback. I think he was the best fantasy quarterback that year. I'm pretty sure the way I recall.
Yeah,
so that's not fabricated.
They were lighting the league up that year.
Yeah, I mean, it was all just like 15-yard digs. And the dude that made it all go, Daigle will have umbrage with this, was Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk was so fucking good.
He would have been 10K, Marshall Faulk. He would have been amazing.
Oh, dude, he
would have been more than that, yeah.
I was thinking, as I was watching this, I'm like, man, what round in best ball drafts would as Hakeem gone?
Azahir Hakeem,
Azahir Hakeem gone in best ball drafts. People would have been overdrafting the shit out of Azahir Hakeem.
That year, I'm looking it up right now. So that year, Kurt Warner's that year they showed in the movie, Marshall Faulk had 2,429 yards.
Unreal.
Wow. Did they talk about Torrey Holt in the movie? Or did they
He
only
ran
focus
one
on
route wrong and they yelled at him, but he was Torrey Holt, if I'm not mistaken. That was his first year, right? He was a rookie that year.
Wasn't he very good, or he wasn't very good right out the gate?
He was solid, but Isaac Bruce was like ahead of him.
Definitely was ahead of him.
But eventually he unseated him. Didn't Holt pass him by at some point?
Yeah, it was Holt's rookie year. He had 52 catches, 788 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then the next year he went bonkers. And then the next 10 years, but the following year he went absolutely nuclear.
Was Ricky Prohl on that team?
Yeah.
So it was like it was Bruce, Hakeem, Holt, and Prohl, right? Like that, and then obviously Marshall Faulk. Yeah, that seems nasty.
I think after Pro, it was like Kevin Kirkus. Was that it?
No, he was later.
Roland Williams,
later,
I believe.
Later. Yeah. Well, listen, not spoiler alert, but I have to give this movie the Roland Williams. He caught Kurt Warner's first career touchdown. It has to be, man. It has to be.
That is the official score.
I have to. It's just too fitting, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to play the Rotten Tomatoes IMDb game? Do you want to guess what the critics think of this movie?
This is a tough one.
I can pull it up. Rob, you go
this
first.
is a smashed audience score, though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's for a certain audience.
Does Rotten Tomato usually score feel-good movies really high?
It's thumbs up, thumbs down, and this is the most vanilla sick gentleman 6 that was ever created. Like, like it's gonna have a super high Rotten Tomato score, and then IMDb is gonna be more of the C grade.
I'm gonna give it 51% for critics.
Okay, so we're doing Rotten Tomatoes. Give me both scores, Rob.
And God, I don't want the audience to be.
Oh, dude.
60%,
because
I'll just tell you this: the sample sizes are not huge. The sample sizes are not huge. 70.
No one's seen
no one's on the movie.
2,500 people is all we have as far as Rotten Tomatoes.
That's incredible.
All the ones.
Nobody's seen this. No one knows that this movie is out there.
People thought it was an SNL spoof, but it actually.
I literally thought it was an SNL spoof.
I wish it was more. I wanted to laugh more during this.
I wanted it to be funnier, and that's why I'm going to pick a movie in a second. I wanted an unintentional comedy. We didn't really get that, but I think I might have one, and we'll discuss to watch for next week. John, give me the Rotten Tomato score, both the critics and the audience.
Critics, I will say 58%. Audience, I will say 91%.
Rich.
Yeah, I'll say critics are somewhere in like the 2/3 range, so 60%, and I think the audience is like 90%, like Daigle. Like I think it's there was never a more gentleman 6 than this movie ever made.
You guys have a good read. 76% from the 70 critics.
76. Whoa.
Wow.
98% audience score. 98%. 1 out of 50 says, "Nah, I'm good."
No, that's Paddington territory. That's a joke.
Yeah, it's again 2,500.
It all comes back to
there's two
annexation in
things.
Paddington.
There's two things that have made me sick tonight. One is that Rotten Tomatoes score. The other is that there's a restaurant that also does foot massages.
I'm intrigued about that. I guess that says more about me, but I think we road trip next year to what is it called again? I have this Jones's Good Ass Barbecue and Foot Massage. Do you eat first and then get the same? I don't know.
I don't want to know.
There's only one way to find out.
Do you eat while you're getting the foot massage? Get some ribs while your toes are getting
that tickled? Seems efficient, if nothing else. But all right, let's knock out the IMDb. Discuss the next movie we're gonna watch next week. Let's see, John, you give us the IMDb score for American Underdog.
It would have been higher. Oh, IMDb.
Yeah.
Gosh, so we're gonna be lower this time, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Well, then I'm just gonna stick with. I'll probably still get it wrong, but I'll still stick with 51% for the critics. Audience.
It's just an IM. This is just the. There's no critics or audience. It's just a 1 through 10.
4. It's probably too high.
No, it's higher than that.
7.2.
7.2 from Rob.
Yeah, it's like a 6.8.
You guys middled it. It's 7.1. 7.1 in IMDb.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm assigning a movie this week. I'm debating between two.
Are we finishing our scores?
Hold on, grades.
We got to get scores from Daigle.
Oh, we got to give our scores. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, that's right. Go ahead, Rob. John.
Okay, I mean, it's a 1.7 out of 5. It's just not good. I don't know what to say. Like it's awful. Like if you want to watch like the most paint by numbers sports movie with the worst sports scenes that you'll ever see in your life, that somebody probably literally wrote sports ball on the script somewhere, then this is the movie for you.
If they had played more sports in this movie, I would have gave it a higher score. But since it is just your typical feel good, it's like Rich said, 40-degree day. I don't want to give it too high. I don't want to give it too low. We're just going to even 1 out of 10 and even 5.0. We're just going to make it as lukewarm as possible.
It's the most C movie I've ever. It's a flat out C. It's not terrible. It's not great. It hit every trope. It's fine. It does what it's supposed to do. Do I want to watch it again? No. And
I feel bad for knocking it, but like because it was his real life. But his life was literally like every sports movie you've ever seen.
Yeah.
His life story is even better, like in terms of like the football stuff, because he faced even more adversity that they don't even show when he has to leave the Rams. He's backing up Eli, comes in and lights it up. He goes to Arizona, makes it to another Super Bowl. Well,
that's the thing. It only goes up to, so spoiler alert for the movie, it only goes up to his first career start.
Yeah.
And then they show you the Super Bowl later. They give you like a Super Bowl thing, but it only goes up to his first career start. The rest of his career actually is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there's a sequel, maybe. Let's cross our fingers.
Oh,
there's a sequel coming out.
Imagine if they pumped out like 10 of these sequels. Kurt Warner in space.
Who did he end up getting benched for in the end? I'm trying to think. Didn't somebody kind of unseat him?
Well, he got benched for Eli. He was the quarterback before Eli took over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll never forget the Kurt Warner Rams year or Cardinals year. He broke his left hand and he couldn't hand off. And they would bring in Tim Rattay at the goal line to come hand off and run. Like it was like they had a designated handoffer. They had a designated guy to come in to hand off because Kurt Warner couldn't hand off. And he used to drive me crazy because like Rattay like snuck in like 2 or 3 touchdowns before they started this dumbass tush push shit. And and like Rattay would come in and like snake these touchdowns. And you'd be like, what the hell? These help nobody in fantasy football. Like, why are these happening?
Well, he came in Arizona because was that when they drafted the dude from USC and Leinart? Yeah, wasn't it Leinart? And
yeah, it sounds right.
It was my timeline wrong here. And Leinart just was garbage, and so they ended up having to play Warner, and he just absolutely crushed with him.
Leinart, who never forget, stayed in college his final year with 1 credit left because he literally just wanted to stay in USC. And you know what? Who can blame him?
It was Josh McCown. They had Josh McCown. And he took over that following year with Josh McCown as who he supplanted. He went 2-8 his first year with Arizona. Well, remember Warner? Good. We thought Kurt Warner was literally, I think, dead like two or 3 times in his career, and the dude was like he came back. So they drafted Leinart after, and Warner just came back. He just came back from the dead. They drafted Leinart his second year in Arizona because, again, they were horrible. And then Warner's rookie year, he was ass. And then Warner took the job the next year. And then the next year they went to Super Bowl, which was one of the better Super Bowls of my life. Yeah, that was that Larry Fitzgerald had an absolutely demonic playoff run. If anyone remembers that, like absolutely was unguardable. Like he was giving Ike Taylor the business in that Super Bowl.
Just wish they would have won that one.
Yeah. But that Ben Roethlisberger throw to Santonio Holmes is literally one of the most insane throws I've seen. Like it happened.
It's throw and catch. I mean,
what a just ridiculous throw.
Yeah.
And then you add in the fact it was on that stage, right? Just incredible for sure.
Just stupid, man. That was a great Super Bowl.
That also, it has like the completely insane play right before the half, right? Like the 99-yard touchdown.
There's only like 7 blocks in the back on that. Like it was crazy. Like it was wild.
Why do you hate fun? Why do you want to spoil that?
It was fun. Rule of cool. That's right. That's like the Lions play that happened on Saturday night. Like rule of cool. Like rule of cool should always take precedent. It stands because it was cool. And that's why you're right.
All right. I think I have an unintentionally funny movie that we can kind of, we were kind of hoping for this to be unintentionally funny, and not really. It was more like, a lot of dramatic stuff and whatever. It wasn't necessarily, there wasn't a lot of funny parts outside of the actual football play, which is, I guess they didn't have any on set to, direct what football is supposed to look like sometimes. So I have 2 movies to propose. One actually kind of blends in with this movie. Blends in with this show. It just kind of works out. I'll save that one in a second, but I'm going to start with, and I feel like I've pushed this agenda several times, so I'm bringing it back. And this feels like a unintentionally comedy, type movie. You know it. We've talked about it several times. You don't forget it. Once you hear the title, you're never going to forget. Money Plane. Like, who doesn't want to see? Have you ever thought, what I want to see is I want to see a bunch of billionaires gamble on completely ridiculous things. I want Kelsey Grammer. I want Thomas Jane. I want Denise Richards, and I want Edge from wrestling fame.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I do want all those things together. You're all right.
The Venn diagram is just a circle. Everybody wants that for sure. So Money Plane is in the pool. I've been trying to push that one. Just here, if you want a positive, it's only an hour and 22 minutes. Only an hour and 22 minutes. Yeah.
I want all these things.
The second one, I thought was unintentionally hilarious at sometimes. It's got a real legit big name Hollywood actor. It's got a starlet. It's Ben Affleck and Anna de Armas. And we're talking about the ocean. Have you guys seen Deep Water on the Hulu?
No. I know what movie you're talking about though, and I love Anna de Armas.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I saw this like basically when it came out. It came out in 2022, but I will happily watch it again. I had a legit LOL moment when it's like dramatic things are happening, and it's just, you've ever seen it, like, oh my god, this is what they're doing, and it's just hilarious. Mm-hmm. This movie does that. So if you guys want to lobby, if you really want to see Money Plane, by all means. But Deep Water, it sort of ties in with the theme of the show with the ocean.
You had a harder pitch on the Edge movie.
Well, what I would say if I were pitching these 2 movies, the Money Plane feels like week 18 because
it had a very week 18 description.
Yeah, like you were just describing week 18 as you pitched that movie.
I'm pretty just like Ronnie Rivers, basically.
I'm pretty sure Harrison Bryant is in the plane somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's like billionaires gambling on completely it's like they're in the air, and I think Edge is trying to steal the money from all these billionaires.
I mean,
don't spoil it for us.
Well, I don't want to give anything away. But I kind of want,
take this.
I'm happy. Whatever you guys want. It sounds like you guys want Money Plane, which is a hilarious.
I mean, Rob made a great correlation there.
It is very week 18 for sure. But here's the thing: you got to pay $5 for it. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I don't know if that changes. Okay. Actually, Amazon had the American Underdog on sale. I only had to pay $2 for that.
I had a dilemma. Did you not have the dilemma where you're like, where they get you? It's like it was $2 to rent, but it was $4 to buy it, and I was
I stared at it.
That's when you know you're in for us. That's when you know you're in for a show.
I was like, I don't want to own this movie, but it is only $2 more.
I'll gladly pay if everyone else will.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
All right, so it sounds like it's Money Plane, an action mystery thriller from 2020. We're gonna go with Money Plane. Do you want like the synopsis or no? You want to go in cold? You want to go in cold, right? Cold.
Yeah. I don't. I just need.
I heard the cast. That's all. That's the synopsis.
That's all I need.
Yeah, there's nothing else. There's nothing else you need for sure. Those in the chat, feel free to play along at home and watch the movie, and come back next week as we discuss Money Plane and discuss, of course, the playoffs.
Historical anomaly.
Every game.
Historical anomalies in the chat is saying that Money Plane is free on Tubi. So if you
commercials, right? Tubi is
Yeah.
commercials, but like I think you can watch everything for free there.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
Was
way
the
to go.
Three Musketeers guy in chat today? We didn't get the Three Musketeers.
I haven't seen it.
I mean, 17 weeks he's been pitching. You're telling me he didn't come for week 18?
He needs a week off for the wild card.
Just wait till next year when every week we review a different Three Musketeers movie other than the one that he wants.
How many weeks can we do that for? Like 10 weeks or so? There's a whole bunch of them, I think.
Oh, I bet you we can do it for more than 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I can dig up some Three Musketeer movies. I guarantee it. Not to make this show any longer, but did you guys see that Mickey Mouse has gone?
Mm-hmm.
Steamboat Willie is out of Disney's hands and it's in the public domain. And
and it's like in a video game now, right?
They're doing a horror movie, correct?
Like 15 horror movies based off of it already. These are the IP grabs that these companies do.
Can't you just like up the copyright? How does that? I don't know how that works. Like
I don't think after 100 years. I think after 100 years you lose it. It goes into public domain.
It's not long enough, is it? I'm not here talking on behalf of Big Disney, but
I might be wrong.
I guess we'll get some interesting stuff out of it. Yeah, I don't know how that stuff works, but I did see like evil Mickey Mouse in a video game. Like, what is this? I'm like, why would Disney sign off on this? I guess this is the reason why they had no say. They couldn't stop it.
They can't stop it.
Okay.
Just like Mickey Mouse.
Can we stop Disney though? We still can't. It's too big.
I don't
know.
Big
to slow down, huh?
They were finally not the #1 movie studio this past year. So
what was #1?
I think Universal took it with Oppenheimer,
Barbie?
Fast X. No, they didn't have Barbie. They had one more though. That was pretty big. I forget what the other big one was.
All right. We've kept the people enough. We kept them for 2 hours. Do appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Do all those things. Do appreciate that. Also, join the Listener League. You can get yourself a month free of RotoGrinders Premium as well. Once again, if you are still hanging out, if you're still listening, do want to shout out last week's winner, which was the Fog Ducker. The Fog Ducker. Contact me. We'll hook you up with a month free. I stared at that a couple times. I got to pause because I want to say, I don't know if I'm trying to trip me up there with that name, but got it right. Rich, tell the people where they can find you, all the good stuff, give them the socials, everything before we get out of here.
Buddy, it is week 18. 272 games, Dean. I wrote them all up. I will write up the playoff games. You can check that out at sharpfootballanalysis.com. But Dean, we're here. We're just going to enjoy our own money playing this weekend.
I'm excited to watch Money Play and talk about it next week. Rob, whatever sort of, I know you have like your hand in like 17 different things, whatever you want to throw out there. Tell them about the castle.
I'm in a castle. You can go on the Spike Week Discord. You can see all the pictures from within this castle that I've posted, or you can go to the Hometown Ghost Stories Discord and do that. But I'm not going to mail it in like Reebs. You can go to Spike Week, and we are helping you draft your playoff best ball teams, whether it's on Underdog, whether it's on Drafters. You can go over there. We have tools made for it. This is our time to shine in best ball, just like it is the other 10 months out of the year where we get no time off and we're sleep deprived. And all I do is talk about best ball, and I'm probably going to have a stroke within the next 48 hours because of it. But go over, let's draft some best ball teams, some playoff ones. It's honestly my favorite form of best ball that there is.
Hey, Rich, I meant to ask you about, can you give me like 30 seconds on those Reese's peanut butter animal crackers?
Dude, I mean, absolute made of 100% heroin. Just made out of heroin.
What is like the over-under, the number? You put your hand in the bag. How many do you have?
The serving size says 4 crackers. Dude,
just like this show.
Yeah, man.
The over is a lock on 4. We've been on for too long.
Fortunately, I'm going to mail it in because I have nothing to promote. So I'm going to go eat animal crackers and play video games. And Rob, feel free, as long as you don't make that joke again, to invite me on your show. Because I got nothing better to do for the next couple weeks, buddy.
Let's do it.
For producer Steve, for Rob, for Rich, for John, for Jones's good ass barbecue and foot massage, I was Dean.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening. Good luck in week 18, the all information slates, and come back because we're going to knock out some playoff content as well. This was the Pick Six Show. We're out of here. Oh.